Good evening. Welcome to the Town Council's Chambers, April 7, 2014, 7 p.m. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Agenda item number 2, roll call, please.
Councillor Carrasco?
Present.
Councillor Clements?
Present.
Councillor Langevin?
Present.
Councillor Manna?
Present.
Councillor Marcucci?
Present.
Councillor Moriarty?
Present.
Councillor Nicola?
Present.
Councillor Peliquin?
Excused.
Councillor Vandal?
Present.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, consider and accept the Town Council meeting minutes of Monday, March 24th, 2014. Motion?
So move. Second.
Anyone have any discussion or corrections? Seeing none, show of hands, fine. Thank you. Agenda item number 4, subcommittee reports. General Government, Councilor Nicola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A meeting of the General Government Subcommittee was held on Wednesday, March 26th in the Veterans Conference Room. In attendance were myself, Councilors Vandal, Moriarty, citizen members Michael Janes and Holly Christo. Also in attendance were Councilors Langevin, Marcucci, Clements, Manna, Carrasco. Acting Town Manager Reed, Andy Pelletier, Tony King, Brian Oliver, John Faris was at that meeting. That's an insert that you may want to add to this item. Attorney Michael Scott, Tracy Markham, Roger and Estelle Cowett, Ray Gauthier, Paul Zotos, Gus Steves, Maureen Doyle, John Pulowski, and James Sotilli. I call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Agenda item number 1, information discussion regarding Casella meeting of January 23, 2014. Town Manager Reed said the nature of the meeting was for an update, an explanation to where they stood. Tony King handed out a copy of the agenda handed out at the meeting of January 23, 2014. You'll note to the councilors as you're reading along, it was not Mr. King in this meeting, it was Mr. Oliver. So where you see Mr. King, it's Mr. Oliver. Mr. Oliver also handed out a copy of the CDM document from the town and a CDM document prepared by him. He explained the spreadsheet showing the payments made by Casella. Due to wetlands, Casella has lost approximately 600,000 tons of build-out. Brian Oliver said he wants more communication with the council and the town so that everyone is aware of the changes going on. The town is receiving approximately $2.3 million in royalty payments per year at the present time. Mr. Oliver said there is still some work to be done with permitting and site assignments. Attorney Scott said that the Common Goals letter's purpose was to iron out some of the issues with the contract, including Barefoot Road. Mr. Oliver stated that the triangle piece of property was put out to bid on an RFP, and Casella made an agreement with the town to swap this piece of land for 200 feet of H-foot road owned by the town that needs to be built. After this is done, Casella will then return the entire road to the town. This road will help with the buses from Charlton and the connection with Commercial Drive. Mr. Oliver said that eventually Casella would like to talk to the town about purchasing some land on Tower Road to relocate their offices. This land would not be used for landfill. Mr. Janes asked about what would be done once the landfill fills up. Mr. Oliver said it could be used to place things like solar panels or gas tanks/engines that could continue to generate power for 10 years. Also, once the landfill is full, Casella has an obligation to oversee this site for 30 years. Casella will be doing an open house every year, and the citizens are encouraged to attend and see how the site works. Mr. Oliver explained about the landslide on August 26, 2013. He said that some of the dirt from the landslide went into the buffer zone and into about 3 acres of the wetlands. Casella said they went in and cleaned the wetlands as much as was possible before the weather turned. They will start up again in June or July with the Charlton Conservation Commission. They had an engineer go through all of the other wetland areas to identify any weak areas and found only one small area where they will which they will reinforce once the weather gets better. Agenda item number 2, landfill extension agreement discussion for Section 30, quote, modifications, end quote, and the right to perform a landfill benefit competitive market survey within the 7th year of the contract. Mr. Oliver stated the town approached them about doing the market survey early, and they said that they were not opposed to it. We are currently in the 6th year of the contract. They hope to have it completed within the next 3 or 4 months and the results shared with the council. Agenda item number 3, discussion life of the landfill. Mr. Oliver stated that when the CDM was originally made, it projected 20 years. When CDM was originally made, it projected 20 years. Currently, based on Phase 2 projections, it should take us to year 2025, but a lot of permitting site assignments need to be done. There's a curbside pickup contract of 20 years where Casella would provide curbside pickup at no cost to the residents until 2027. I just want to add that repeatedly in this meeting, both Mr. Faris and Mr. Oliver stated that they want to do updates with the council and the town quarterly, so they're planning on having another meeting of this type in June. A motion to adjourn was made by Michael Janes and seconded by Holly Christo. Vote by a show of hands, all in favor, 5-0. Meeting adjourned at 9:20. Respectfully submitted, Evelyn Rivera, recording clerk. Another General Government Subcommittee meeting was held on Tuesday, April 1st in the George Parent Conference Room. In attendance were myself, committee members, Councilor Vandal, Councilor Moriarty, and citizen member Holly Christo. Also in attendance were Councilor Langevin, Councilor Marcucci, Councilor Manna, Councilor Clements, Acting Town Manager Bob Reed, Karen Harnoy, Mindy Ernst Funyer, Maddie Doust, Michael Montigny, Stacy Reno, and Will Canoyer. Michael Janes was excused. I call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Agenda item number 1, review and vote to approve FY 2015 Town Council budget. Councilor Moriarty expressed concern on reducing paper and doing more electronically. I asked that the, quote, outgoing councilor award, end quote, budget be deleted. Mrs. Harnoy said that this is probably for other certificates or awards and will look into it. Motion was made by Holly Christo, seconded by Councilor Moriarty. Vote by a show of hands, all in favor, 4-0, and this was to approve the FY 2015 Town Council overall budget of $16,670, which is a 0.05 decrease. Agenda item number 2, review and vote to approve FY 2015 Town Manager budget. Councilor Manna asked about the use of interns. It was decided to leave this item in for the next town manager's discretion. Motion was made and seconded with a favorable recommendation to council to approve the FY 2015 Town Manager overall budget of $260,858, which is a 3.99% increase. Vote by a show of hands, all in favor, 4-0. Agenda item number 3, review and vote to approve FY 2015 accountant budget. No discussion was held on that. A motion was made and seconded to approve the 2015 accountant overall budget of $152,647. This is a 2.49 increase. Vote by a show of hands, all in favor. Agenda item number 4, review and vote to approve FY 2015 assessor's budget. No discussion was held. A motion was made and seconded with a favorable recommendation to council to approve this assessor's overall budget of $186,539. This is a 1.84% increase. Vote by a show of hands, all in favor. Agenda item number 5, review and vote to approve FY 2015 treasurer collector budget. No discussion was held. A motion was made, seconded by Holly Christo with a favorable recommendation to council to approve this budget, overall budget of $330,117. This is a 2.12% increase. Vote by a show of hands, all in favor. Agenda item number 6, review and vote to approve FY 2015 town attorney budget. Councilor Moriarty asked about the municipal hearing officer position. Mrs. Harnoy said this position has been reduced to 1 hearing officer opposed to the 2 as revenues generated from 21Ds are not enough to have 2 officers. Motion was made and seconded. Favorable recommendation to council to approve the FY 2015 Town Attorney Overhaul budget of $125,500. This is a 2.03% increase. Vote by a show of hands. All in favor. Agenda item number 7, review and vote to approve FY 2015 Town Clerk budget. No discussion was held. A motion was made and seconded with a favorable recommendation to council to approve it. Overall budget of $164,214. This is a 2.01 increase. Vote by a show of hands. All in favor. Agenda item number 8, review and vote to approve FY 2015 elections budget. The reason for the high increase this year is because we will have 3 elections this year, opposed to just having 1 like last year. Motion was made by Councilor Moriarty, seconded by Holly Christo. Favorable recommendation. FY 2015 elections overall budget of $63,047. This is a 71.12% increase. Vote by a show of hands. All in favor, 4-0. Agenda item number 9, review and vote to approve the FY 2015 cable budget. Mrs. Harnoy said this budget amount is offset by revenues from charter subscribers. There is no cost to the taxpayers. A motion was made and seconded with favorable recommendation to council to approve the FY 2015 cable overall budget of $124,649. This is a 7.04% increase. Vote by a show of hands. All in favor. Agenda item number 10, review and vote to approve the FY 2015 administration budget. No discussion was held. Motion was made and seconded to approve this budget, the administration budget of $784,000. This is level funded. Vote by a show of hands. All in favor. Agenda item number 11, review and vote to approve FY 2015 data processing budget. Mr. Knoyer said there was a one-time fee in the budget for FY 2014, which will not be charged in FY 2015, therefore reducing the overall budget. Vote by a show of hands. A motion was made and seconded. Favorable recommendation to council to approve the data processing overall budget of $193,500. This is a 2.81% decrease. Vote by a show of hands. All in favor. Agenda item number 12, review and vote to approve FY 2015 council reserve budget. Mrs. Harnoy said this budget is used to transfer monies to other budgets. Motion was made and seconded. Favorable recommendation to council to approve the FY 2015 council reserve overall budget of $100,000, again, level funded. Vote by a show of hands. All in favor. Agenda item number 13, review and vote to approve FY 2015 personnel budget. The increase in this budget is due to an additional 2 potential retirees. A motion was made and seconded with a favorable recommendation to council to approve FY 2015 personnel overall budget of $2,967,112, which is a 6.60% increase. Vote by a show of hands. All in favor. Agenda item number 14, review and vote to approve FY 2015 group health and life insurance budget. No discussion was held, and that's all there is on agenda item number 14. Did we?
No, it keeps going. 2 things there, 2 different.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Thank you, Councilor. A motion was made by Councilor Moriarty and seconded by Holly Christo with a favorable recommendation to council to approve the FY 2015 town group health and life insurance overall budget of $1,610,200, which is a 2.71% decrease. Vote by a show of hands. All in favor. A motion was made by Councilor Moriarty and seconded by Holly Christo with a favorable recommendation to council to approve the FY 2015 school group health and life insurance overall budget of $1,319,500, which is a 9.73% increase. Vote by a show of hands. All in favor. Agenda item number 15, review and vote to approve FY 2015 general insurance budget. Concern was raised on the amount of unemployment insurance for the school department. Mrs. Harnois said that they have level funded, they being the town, has level funded the amount at this time, as the school has not given us any new projections. Mr. Reed said the amount is staggering, but no further information is available at this time to be able to change the figures. The council is concerned that the school unemployment insurance will go up substantially. A motion was made and seconded with a favorable recommendation to council to approve the FY 2015 general insurance overall budget of $703,360, which is a 1% decrease. Vote by a show of hands, all in favor. Agenda item number 16, review and vote to approve FY 2015 boards and committees budget. No discussion was held. A motion was made and seconded with a favorable recommendation to council to approve this overall budget of $7,082, which is a 1.48% increase. Vote by a show of hands, all in favor. Agenda item number 17, review and vote to approve FY 2015 articles budget. No discussion was held. Motion was made and seconded with a favorable recommendation to council to approve FY 2015 articles overall budget of $101,800, which is a 7.45 decrease. That's a 7.45% decrease. Vote by a show of hands, all in favor. Agenda item number 18, review and vote to approve the FY 2015 debt service budget. No discussion was held. A motion was made and seconded with a favorable recommendation to council to approve the 2015 debt service overall budget of $2,796,270, which is a 0.92% increase. Vote by a show of hands, all in favor. Agenda item number 19, review and vote to approve FY 2015 Schedule 1 and Schedule 5. Mrs. Harnois said these schedules are proposing a 2% increase to all non-union workers. Councilor Langevin asked Mrs. Harnois if there were any changes in grades or hours, and she indicated there were none. A motion was made and seconded with a favorable recommendation to council to approve the FY 2015 Schedule 1, Schedule 5 budget. Vote by a show of hands, all in favor. A motion to adjourn was made by Councilor Moriarty, seconded by Holly Christo. Vote by a show of hands, all in favor. Meeting adjourned at 6:50 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Evelyn Rivera. I have nothing blessedly in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. BDPW, Councilor Vandal.
No report, no. I have a meeting scheduled for the 9th, Wednesday, this Wednesday, the 9th. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. C, Education and Human Services, Councilor Marcucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We held a meeting this past Thursday. The minutes are not available. We did have 4 agenda items, and it was for the approval and discussion, just as Councilor Nicola read, with the different departments. So it was for the library budget, the 2015 Health Department budget, the Veterans Community Center and Rec budgets, and also we did discuss, no vote was taken on the payments of the February school unemployment invoice in the amount of $17,898.39, and that was just for the month of February. The budgets that I just mentioned, they're basically all level funded, and I will have those minutes available at our next council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. D, Planning and Development, Councilor Clements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Meeting of the Planning and Development Subcommittee was held on Tuesday, March 31st in the George Parent Conference Room. In attendance were myself, Subcommittee Member Councilor Manna, and Citizens Members Evelyn Petrelli and Roger Cowett. Also in attendance were Councilor Nicola, Acting Town Manager Reed, Cassandra Ackley, Estelle Cowett, David Payer. Councilor Pelican was absent. I called the meeting at 6 o'clock. Agenda item 1 was vote to authorize the town manager to sign an agreement for traffic impact peer review on behalf of the planning board and special permit granting authority, with funding to come from the applicant, Cumberland Farms. Mrs. Ackley said the MGL provide for peer review at the expense of the applicant. The planning board is requesting a traffic review. An RFQ was sent out, and they received 3 bids. Due to their extraordinary experience, Bristol Traffic and Transportation Consulting LLC were selected at a cost of $4,000. A motion was made by Councilor Manna, seconded by Roger Cowett, with a favorable recommendation to council to authorize the town manager to sign an agreement for traffic impact peer review on behalf of the Planning Board and Special Permit Granting Authority, with funding to come from the applicant, Cumberland Farms. Vote by show of hands, all in favor. Then we added Agenda Item 1A, and I'm going to read what it says here, and I'll explain why. Mrs. Ackley recommended adding an agenda item to show approval for the architect Daniel Benoit that was previously approved by the Redevelopment Authority with funds to come from the applicant. This is done to allow funds to flow through the town financial system. So what Mrs. Ackley was asking for us is, like in the previous vote, the Redevelopment Authority did not actually have to ask us permission to do this. They had already hired Daniel Benoit well within their scope of authority. However, because the funds were going to come through the town's financial system, she felt that it was important that we showed some type of vote or transparency and approval as to where this money was coming from and going through and going out to. So we did make a motion to add that. Councilor Manna made a motion, and Evan Petrelli seconded to add it, and it was a favorable vote to add the item. What I don't see here in the minutes is the actual agenda item, and I also don't see it on the agenda itself. Again, it was more formality, but it was an actual agenda item that was done, so it should have showed up as such, not just the motion to amend, but the motion to, to add the item, but then the actual vote on the item, which was favorable to council. I just point that out because where it seemed to be missing a little spot there. I'll check it out with Evelyn and find out if we can find that. Agenda Item 2, update the subcommittee on the Common Backyards Grant proposal. Mrs. Ackley said she received a call from the state that Governor Patrick wants to put a splash pad or playground in every city in the Commonwealth, and Southbridge is considered a city. After the second call from the state, 2 sites were identified as possibilities, Moore Street and Walcott Park. This program would have a match on the town side, and funding would have to be worked out. Mrs. Ackley said that the match would not come from any town funding. There are numerous grants and other in-kind donations and such that she was working on. There are still questions on the maintenance if this project were to be accepted. So therefore, we didn't vote on it. We didn't do anything in regard to this grant at this point. We certainly are cognizant of the fact that when we bring something in, even if it is partially free or free, we have to remember what happens down the road when we take ownership and have to maintain that, repair it, water bills, such. So we are doing our due diligence before it gets brought to council for any type of approval. Agenda Item 3, update the subcommittee on the CBG projects. Mrs. Ackley wanted to give the council an update on ongoing projects. She's working on getting a committee for the McCann project. That's a redesign of the McCann Fields. Many of you are aware that the parking lots have been done. If you haven't seen that, you should take a look. They look great down there. No more potholes. So right now, the next step is that we do have some funding to actually redesign the fields and hopefully move forward with some type of actual work on that in the near future. A redesign on the Chestnut Street project. And the third item was getting engineering services for the downtown sidewalks. As you know, again, that's been a problem for a long time, and we are now at the point where we'll have engineering services that will oversee the actual sidewalk work. And she did mention that it looks like we will be getting those sidewalks, the bad ones with the pavers that are lifted and such on that side of the Southbridge Savings side, up at least to Chapin and hopefully to Goddard, hopefully getting that done, some progress on that this year. This construction season. So that was good news to many that I've spoken with. A motion to adjourn was made by Councilor Manna, seconded by Evan Petrella. It was in favor, and we adjourned the meeting at 6:50. Respectfully submitted, Evelyn Rivera, recording clerk. I have a meeting scheduled for Thursday, April 17th, 6 p.m. I believe it'll be the George Parent Room, but that'll depend on the schedule that comes out. There will be some budget items on there, and depending on the outcome of the planning board meetings, we will have an agenda item to discuss and potentially vote on the livestock bylaw that's been going back and forth a bit. So I just wanted you to be aware of that, to keep an eye. Your agendas can be found on the town website in the window by the handicap ramp at the back door here at the town hall, and also in the town clerk's office. Probably somewhere else, but those are the 3 most prominent. So keep an eye out if you're looking to find out what is going on at a meeting. I encourage you to do that. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Council, just a point of reference to that added agenda item. I did receive a phone call like today at 2:30, and Yvonne was a little confused on it, so
Okay.
I said this wasn't a dire emergency, but
Yeah, it's not.
we will put it on the next agenda, so maybe you and Sandy can reach out to Yvonne
Figure
so
out
it's
the-
clear, and we'll put it on the next agenda.
Right. Again, it was something that's already been done. It's really
Yeah.
just transparency and making sure we know where things are going.
Thank you. E, protection person and property, Councilor Moriarty.
Thank you. The Protection of Persons Property Committee has no report at this time. We will have one at the next meeting with the minutes once they've been prepared and submitted. In the meantime, in the next few weeks, there are actually going to be 2 PPP subcommittee meetings. One will be Thursday, April 10th at 6:30 p.m. That'll be the majority of the PPP budget as well as some police business. And then on Tuesday, April 22nd at 7 p.m., that will be the fire department budget and other fire department business. Both of those meetings are scheduled for right up here in the George Parent Community Room, and like everything else, open to the public. So that's Thursday the 10th at 6:30, which will be pretty much everything PPP except for fire department, and then Tuesday, April 22nd at 7 p.m. for several fire department matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. F, Town Manager's Search Committee, Councilor Marcucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A few things this evening. As some of you might not know, we had a meeting this past Thursday. There has been a petition that's been circulating through town to change the form of government in Southbridge. According to the town clerk, they did receive the proper number of votes to get it on the June ballot. Ms. Dowse contacted Copeland and Page to find out if this was going to be a binding or a non-binding question on the June ballot. The legal ruling is that this will be a binding question come up on our June elections. With that, we had spoken to Don Jutton, who is the president of the Town Manager Search Committee. He informed us Thursday evening that we should suspend search for a town manager, as number one, it's not fair to any applicant that we might have if they were to be put into a situation where ultimately a year, year and a half, 2 years down the road, that they could possibly lose their job because it would no longer be a form of government that we would need a town manager. It would be more of a town administrator. So with that, Mr. Jutton did recommend to the committee, and we took his recommendation, that any further meetings will be suspended until after our June elections. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will not have any more reports until after our election.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 5, Chairman's announcements. I just have a few of them today. Just public information, reminding the public there's an Earth Day cleanup Saturday, April 19th. Meet at the Town Common from 9 to 12 to help clean up our community. Also, we have a rabies and a microchip clinic Saturday, May 17th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., not 11 p.m. DPW on the Golford Road. And also, now that everyone's getting and the warm weather's finally broke, we have the curbside yard waste pickup that begins April 21st through June 1st, reminding everyone, please do not put your brush in plastic bags, put them in the paper bags, and you can pick those up at Abishon's and stuff like that. And also, our DPW facility is open if you want to take bulk brush over to the facility there. There's waste bins there. So I wanted to remind the public on that. The other thing is we've been having problems, and I'm going to try to correct this problem on the citizen members that serve on boards, pretty much subcommittees. what happens is our process here is Yvonne gets all the data together, the material, and as us councils, we all go pick up our packets. And if we don't pick them up, we pick them up at the police department and stuff like that. Well, what happens is poor Yvonne's been putting the citizen members' stuff in the mail. And no fault to her, by the time they get the information, sometimes it's the night of the meeting, and they don't have time to digest the literature and stuff like that. So what we want to do is, in the spirit of trying to get everyone and get all the information, I'm going to ask the citizens members, please, Yvonne can reach out to you, or your chairs of that can reach out to you to come and pick up your packet. If you know you have a meeting the next week, I will pick it up on a Thursday. And if you don't pick it up Thursday, please make sure you reach out to Yvonne and let her know, and then she will send it to the police department, and you can pick up your packet there. It's just more or less so everyone gets their information in appropriate time. So again, it's transparency, and everyone can do their homework and not getting it at the 11th hour on that. So just trying to, a little housekeeping on that end. So I would ask the chair, and again, Yvonne will probably reach out and call the citizen members on there so they can get their information just at the same time as us, no different than what we do. And hopefully that will help this process. Okay. And that's really all I have for announcements this evening. Agenda item number 6, Town Manager's announcements. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also have information on the rabies and microchip clinic. Saturday, May 17th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the DPW building. Second Chance Animal Shelter will be hosting this rabies microchip clinic. Rabies vaccines are $12 per pet. Microchipping is $20 per pet, cash only. Dogs must be on a leash, cats must be in carriers, and if your pet is eligible for a 3-year vaccine, please bring prior vaccine paperwork. And I understand that this and all these announcements are on the website. And I was to go along with that, I was told to remind citizens of the bylaws, be courteous, and pick up what your pet leaves behind. Get them all. Southbridge Water Department is announcing its semi-annual hydrant flushing, which will started today. Will go from approximately 7 a.m. and continue daily for 6 to 8 weeks between the hours of 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. Flushing will start in the Westville area and continue easterly throughout the town. The procedure will include the cleaning of reservoir intake screens, flushing accumulated sediments from the water mains, and testing the operation of each hydrant. Department requests that during this period, customers check their water before washing clothes. Customers may also get accumulated sediments in their house laterals and experience some discolored water. This will clear up after a brief running of the water at the tap. And please contact the Southbridge Water Department if you have any questions or comments. And this also was sent to the news organizations, the Telegram, Southbridge News. We coincidentally did have a meeting in Boston today with Mass DOT about various grant programs that are available, and at the airport, along with the Airport Commission and Mr. Pluff. And I just wanted to announce that Mr. Pluff has successfully passed the test and received his certification as airport manager, and has been qualified in accordance with the provisions of the Aeronautical Regulations of the Commonwealth and Massachusetts Act as airport manager for the Southbridge Airport. Announcement of the United States Air Force Heritage of America Band Concert. This will be at 7 p.m. Saturday, April 26th, 2014, at the Southbridge Middle High School Auditorium, 132 Torrey Road in Southbridge. Admission is free, but tickets are required, and tickets are available at the Jacobs Edwards Library, 236 Main Street, Southbridge, and the event is sponsored by Ted Bartlett. And lastly, this is a letter which we received from Michael Kaczynski, who's the town administrator for the town of Douglas. On behalf of the town of Douglas, the Douglas Fire Department, the Douglas Police Department, and the Douglas Public Schools, I'd like to extend our heartfelt thanks for the mutual aid your community provided to us on Monday, March 17th, 2014, for our carbon monoxide incident within our municipal center building. Your public safety department's hard work and professionalism was a huge asset during this incident. So kudos to our fire department and responders. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 7, swearing in and presentations. The presentation this evening will be regarding the petition and the change in form of government. I would ask Maddie Dowse, our town clerk, to come forward, and also we have attorney Lauren Goldberg with her this evening. Ms. Dowse?
Good evening. I'm here this evening to present to you the certified...
Yeah, can you, Maddie, just bring the mic down? And
Okay.
Thank
Can
you.
you hear me now? Is it on? Do it again. Hello? Good? Okay. Good evening. I'm here this evening to present to you the certified initiative petition the town clerk's office received on Monday, March 31st, 2014. 705 signatures were received, and 697 signatures were certified as eligible. According to the Southbridge Home Rule Charter, Section 12-3-1, the voters of the town may initiate legislation by submitting a petition to the town council, which requests the submission of the proposed bylaw or measure to a vote of the town council. Said petition must be signed by qualified voters of the town, equal in number to not less than 5% of the total number of voters registered at the regular last town election. At the last town local election, which was held on Tuesday, June 25th, 2013, there were 11,380 voters. 5% of that would be 569 voters. The number of certified signatures on the petition is greater than the amount needed. According to the charter, upon presentation of the certified petition to the town council, it shall become the duty of the town council within 30 days of receipt thereof to pass and adopt or reject such bylaw or measure without alteration as to the meaning or effect. Should the town council reject the proposed legislation, it shall be the further duty of the town council to forthwith submit the question to a vote at the next regular town election, at which the qualified voters of Southbridge shall vote on the question of adopting or rejecting the proposed legislation. So I present this certified petition to you. I have attorney Lauren Goldberg here from Copeland & Page, who is to answer any questions that you may have on the process of moving this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any councils have any questions at this time on the petition that was brought forward? Ms. Goldberg can, I'm sure this is why she's here, she can answer any questions if there's questions that need to be asked. Any questions?
Are there any time constraints on this?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, could I perhaps give a brief overview of the charter as compared to state law and the Constitution to kind of frame the remainder of the discussion?
Absolutely.
What you have before you is a petition that was filed under the town charter. And the town charter allows the voters of the town, not less than 5%, to bring forward a measure that is within the scope of authority of the town council. And the measure that's been brought forward is a motion to amend the town charter to create a different type of government in the town of Southbridge. And because the town council could bring forward a measure of that nature on its own, it's my opinion that the measure is within the scope of the council's authority and therefore the proper subject of an initiative petition. I'd also like to point out that several years ago, a similar circumstance occurred in the town of Southbridge, where a petition seeking to change the form of the town government was brought forward by an initiative petition, And that was actually rejected by the council in total, and the council essentially stated it would take no action under the charter. That matter was brought to the courts, and the court resolved the matter in saying that, yes, the voters of the town do have authority to bring an initiative petition seeking to change the form of town government. So that case, which I believe I have forwarded, is applicable to the town specifically, as well as setting precedent for other towns, because it is an appellate level case. So, in my opinion, the same ruling that the court arrived at would be likely to be the result if the council decided we're going to do nothing with this. So that's on one side. So that's the initiative petition process. Now, in terms of how you change a charter, there's two distinct ways under the Constitution and general laws. We'll talk about the one that's not at issue first, and then we'll talk about the one that the petition would implicate. So the one that's not at issue is called the Home Rule Procedures Act, which is General Laws Chapter 43B. And I'll talk about it as 43B because that's easier for everyone. Under Chapter 43B, there's only one way to make a change in the legislative form, in the form of the legislature, in the form of the town's legislative body. And that is through an elected charter commission. When you use the provisions of Chapter 43B, it must be initiated by the voters and not less than 15% of the registered voters of the town. And there's a form that's prepared by the Secretary of State that's used for that purpose, and it seeks to answer a question, shall this town elect a charter commission? And it also seeks the election of 9 charter commissioners at the same election. Now, a charter commission elected under 43B can make any type of recommendation that it wants to make. And generally what you will see is that the charter commissioners run on a platform. We'd like a town council form of government. We'd like a mayor form of government. We want a representative town meeting. We want an open town meeting. We want a town manager. We want a town administrator. And different people with different agendas will seek election. That's their campaign. That's what they want to represent. And then they all are elected, and they have to work together for the next approximately 2 years. There's a requirement for a public hearing process. There's a requirement for an interim report or a preliminary report. That report goes to the Attorney General's office, and it goes to the Department of Housing and Community Development, and they provide feedback on the charter proposal. Sometimes no proposal is made, and the Charter Commission says, you know, we think our form of government is fine, or they say we can't reach an agreement about a change. And so what's recommended ultimately is no change. But even when a change is recommended, it's not that the Charter Commission starts off with a proposal. They start off with nothing, and then they work towards a proposal. They make this preliminary report, they have a hearing, they get some feedback, and either they change their recommendation or they don't based on that feedback. And ultimately, that question of whether to amend the charter is presented to the voters at an election, and it's binding. Okay, it doesn't come to the town council, it just goes directly to the voters. Okay, so that's one way to amend the charter. And that method is a petition, and you are dealing with a petition here, but it's not the same kind of petition. It's a different petition, okay? So 43B is not relevant to our discussion right now. No one submitted a petition to elect a charter commission, and in fact, the petition itself refers to the actual provisions of the charter dealing with the initiative petition process, okay? All right, so leaving aside 43B entirely, and when I say that, I mean all of the provisions about the elected charter commission, the preliminary report, the hearings, the final report, and the ballot. None of that applies to the current situation. And then we switch over to the other possible way to amend the charter, and that's through special legislation, and that's under Section 8 of Article 89 of the amendments to the Constitution. Now, special legislation can be requested in several ways. One way is through a vote of the town council. So the town council, on its own initiative, could propose an amendment to the charter and petition the general court to adopt that legislation. Okay, that exists, that's an option for you. Another possible way of submitting legislation is through a vote of the voters of the town. Now, there is only one way that the voters can ask for special legislation, and that is if A local charter specifically authorizes a question, a binding question, to be placed on the ballot. And that is what your initiative petition section does in the charter, okay? So just hypothetically, let's take town X. It has a charter. It says nothing in it about an initiative process. And someone comes forward and they want to put a question on the ballot, and they get a bunch of signatures, and they come in. That's fine, and that may be enough to request a non-binding question under Chapter 53, Section 18A of the general laws. But it is not a binding question, and the general court will not accept that as a vote of the voters of the town to request special legislation. But in Southbridge, you do have, or voters have the ability to put a binding question before the voters, okay? So if not less than 5% of the voters come forward with a petition, and that petition seeks that the council adopt a measure amending the charter petitioning the legislature to amend the charter, or amending the charter itself without even referencing that, then that acts as this trigger for the remainder of the provisions that Maddie read, that the town clerk read, which require the council to vote within 30 days of receipt of the certified petition as to whether accept it without alteration as to effect or meaning, or to reject it. And if rejected, it goes on the ballot at the next regular election. That occurs at least 35 days after the date that it's received, the council votes, because there's a requirement under state law that the town clerk be provided with no less than 35 days notice of any question to be included on the ballot. So the timing of this petition does work out that there would be time for the council to vote and within the 30 days, and for the question of whether to adopt the proposed measure to appear on the ballot. So I think that there's been it's easy to meld the two petition types, the 43B petition, which we're not dealing with, and the initiative petition under your town charter. But they're really two totally different avenues. The initiative petition acts as a trigger for the home rule amendment under Section 8, and the other petition would cause an elected charter commission to be elected, or the question of whether to adopt elected charter commission to be rejected. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? Councilor Vandal.
So you're saying, do we have to vote to send it to the people? We have to vote up here, right?
Yes, you have before you a petition to seek special legislation to amend the town charter. The only thing that I would point out is if you fail to act within 30 days to adopt it, that would act as a rejection, and it would go to the ballot. But you have the 30 days to act to accept it, essentially.
30 days to vote for it?
30 days, yes, sir.
Why do we have to take 30 days?
Mr. Chairman, if
I mean,
it's
could we
acceptable.
do that?
Go ahead.
Could we do that tonight if we add an agenda item?
Very nice, open meeting law acknowledgement. There is nothing that would prohibit you from acting on it within any time within the 30 days. So yes, it could be brought up as soon as you chose to bring it up.
All set?
No, I think I want to make a motion to amend, let's see here, I wrote something down. Make a motion to waive the rules and add an agenda item.
Councilor Clements.
I would counter that it's not an emergency situation. We have 30 days to act, and we certainly have another meeting scheduled. So why not give a little more time to digest all the information prior to doing that? Because open meeting law says that if it's an emergency, something that needs to be handled immediately. So that would be, I would like to digest more personally. I've been doing a lot of research, and what Lauren has told us this evening. There's a lot to take in as to where we go from here or what happens. That's just my concern.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Vandal, you have every right to do what you just did, and someone would have to second it. My personal opinion is, and two, that's all. Tonight is all about a presentation, the clerk coming forward. We do have a meeting scheduled for the end of April, It would be on the agenda for a vote, up or down, and we're in the time frame, but there's a lot of literature, a lot of things to look at. But I can say it will be on the agenda for the end of April, and we will fall within the time frame. Hey, the people signed this petition. Quite frankly, now it's going to be up to us to vote yay or nay on it. So I personally want to do my homework on it, and it will be coming before the council. I can definitely promise you that one. But tonight, just having this given to us and stuff like that, and just go and respond to it, we're not doing our end. And that's all. That's just my opinion, and you have every right to it.
Well, we had 700 and something people sign this petition, and we work for them 700 and something people. I don't see any reason that, we have to wait, myself personally. Okay, they've got, both sides have a lot to do. And I don't want to, I want them to have plenty of time to do it and do it right. That's my opinion. We owe these 700 and something people. We work for them too.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Moriarty?
Thank you. Through you, more or less, treat us like we're the average 7-year-old, or similar to the average elected official anyways, but a yes vote means what, a no vote means what, and any potential for any sort of amendments to anything, just so we can make that clear to everybody.
Mr.
Certainly,
Chairman.
go ahead.
Just so that I'm clear, you mean a yes vote of the council or a no vote of the council?
Correct.
Okay. If a majority of the council were to approve this proposed legislation, this proposed measure, then it would act as a vote to seek special legislation to amend the town charter. And it would be forwarded to the state legislature, and the state legislature would either act or not act at its discretion. The legislature receives petitions that are submitted to it, and very regularly files those petitions, but it's really up to the legislature about whether they would or would not move this forward, and I can't speak to that. If there was a vote no on this, then that would act as a rejection for purposes of the charter, and it would trigger the requirement that it appear on the ballot at the upcoming annual town election. The other question you asked, sir, was about whether there could be any amendments. And the limitation in the charter is no changes to meaning or effect. So there may be some limited changes that could be made, but ultimately nothing substantial, because that would be a change in meaning, in my opinion.
So then, essentially, a yes vote from the council could be interpreted or construed as an endorsement of the petition to legislature, whereas a no vote, while not necessarily condemnation, is more or less something that would trigger its going to the general public to vote upon and let the people have their say.
Mr. Chairman.
Certainly.
The council's action on this could either be viewed as procedural or substantive, and in my opinion, that's really up to the council to make that decision. From a procedural perspective, a yes vote would mean, let's move this to the general court and see what action they want to take. A no vote would be, let's put this to the people now to see whether they are in favor of this going to the general court at all. If it was a substantive affirmation or rejection, it could be, we think it's a great idea to go to a different form of government, we're going to vote yes, or we think it's a terrible idea, we're going to vote no. So there are different layers of what your votes could mean. In terms of what kind of amendments would be within the scope, as drafted, it does not appear that there's a voter acceptance provision, meaning, let's hypothetically say the council voted no, it would go to the ballot. The council voted no with no changes, it would go to the ballot, it would be forwarded to the, and hypothetically, if the voters approved it, it would go to the legislature. The legislature has the ability to approve it just as it was written and could, or the legislature could say this is too important, we believe that this is appropriate for the voters to act on when it actually would be binding in terms of changing the form of government, and therefore the legislature might prefer to see a local acceptance provision. in my opinion, a vote to approve this, subject to local acceptance, essentially adding a local acceptance provision, would not be a change as to meaning or effect, because the change that's being proposed would still be subject to a ballot question, which is the way that this is proposed to start off if the council votes no. So in my view, that would be within the scope of an amendment that wouldn't change meaning or effect, but it would change the direction that the petition took. If the council were to approve, subject to voter acceptance provision, then it would move it forward directly to the legislature, but it would have to come back to the voters before it took effect.
Right, so more or less, aside from the substantive portion of it, a yes vote more or less lets Boston decide how this matter goes down, whereas a no vote lets the voters of Southbridge decide.
The yes vote involves the legislature first. The no vote involves the legislature second.
Okay. Thank you.
What's that? Hey, Council Carrasco, and then I got you. You all set?
I'm all set. The question
Councilor
was
Clements?
yes or no, and the answer.
Thank you. Now, it's my understanding that when the legislature gets these acts, it can take a long time. If I'm understanding what you're saying, if we send it to the by our no vote, if it goes on the ballot, it gives us already some type of indication as to what this community is looking for before that formal process of it going up to the legislature and spending a lot of time up there, and potentially, obviously, I personally would want it to go as with a provision for acceptance, which is what we did the last time with our charter changes. So to me, it's kind of redundant in that respect. Personally, my concerns are that it doesn't seem to, this particular act doesn't appear to address the fiscal concerns that I would have in its presentation in the form that it is. So I think, so I guess I'm just making sure I truly understand what you're saying. I think having the people vote on this and really knowing whether it's 1,000 people, 5,000 people, or 700 people that want it, or 10,000 people, whatever our voting numbers are, is good due diligence to start. Mm-hmm. Because if we start that second procedure, it's a lot of work and time and effort, which the legislators are paid for. But as I read, I believe they have hundreds of acts that come through yearly. And only I think it's 60 or 70% even get acted upon. So we have the potential for this sitting with them, because it's so enormous perhaps, they may not want to undertake it as easily as something else. I just see this sitting maybe years or just going on and on. If we send it to the people first by virtue of a no vote, then certainly if the people say yes, that's what that's what we represent, is what the people want. And then I would be more inclined to have the legislators, I can't even talk today, go forward with working on this and then deciding on whether it works for us. That would be something I would think that makes more sense. As I said, as I read through this, there's no fiscal financial means. I don't see where they're saying we're going. I mean, obviously it doesn't say we're paying our selectmen and our moderator and all these things, but when you look at the amount of responsibility being put upon the components that are in here, I imagine there has to be some sort of financial repercussion to accepting this form of government. As in most communities, selectmen are paid, and finance committees and moderators. I'd like to know more about who is actually expecting a paycheck if we change forms of government and how that would affect us. So these are all my reasons for wanting this to go with a no vote, and go to the public right off. Let's make sure we're clearly doing the right thing by sending it to Boston, and not just sending it to Boston to play around with it and come back and then the people say no anyway. It just doesn't. It seems backwards that way. Horse before the cart.
All set,
Cart
Councilor?
before the horse. Yeah, I'm set. Thank you.
Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Ms. Goldberg. Would the petition go on to the ballot in the format that it's in, or would it go in another format? How would the question go?
Mr. Chairman, the charter does not specifically state exactly the form that the question would need to take. It does have the form of a question for the referendum side of the if the council made a decision, it allows there to be a referendum on that question, should we essentially undo what the council has done, but it doesn't have the positive side. Should we adopt this measure that's been proposed? The measure is extremely long, and although I didn't get to talk earlier about my qualifications or why I'm here tonight, I should let you know that I used to be legal counsel to the Elections Division. I've been at Copeland and Page since 2000, and I have several areas of specialty in addition to being a general municipal lawyer, but elections and forms of governance are areas where I spend a significant amount of my time. Knowing as I do the limitations imposed by ballot formats, my expectation is that this proposal would take 3 or 4 ballots in order to put the entire thing on the ballot, and I don't see that that's a likely outcome. My recommendation would likely be to have a briefer version. I know that you have a website, you could have the full text on the website, you could have the full text present at the polls, you can print the full text in the newspaper, have it available at the town clerk's office, at any of the town offices, so at the library. My likely recommendation would be that you do a briefer version of the question, hitting the high points. And when I say the high points, I mean those points that the general court has determined are important under 43B, Section 11. And I'm referring to 43B because it's a good guide as to what kind of information the voters would need to know about the form of government change, particularly going from a town council to a town meeting, board of selectmen form of government.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Vandal.
So a no vote would take it out of our hands and put it on the ballots and let the people decide. Is that what you said in
It would.
short verse?
I'm a lawyer, I can't help myself. Yes, that's the short version. If you were to vote no on this proposal, it would go to the voters under the provisions of the town charter that would be triggered by that no vote.
Well, I want it to go to the voters. So if we vote, I'm going to vote no. I'm going to make a motion that we have changed the, what do I want to say? I want to make a motion that we put it on the ballot this evening.
Mr. Chairman?
Certainly.
I'm sorry to insert myself, but I just wanted to make a point here, and that is the potential for voting on this petition, it would be my view, was known at the time the agenda was put together because of the provisions of the charter itself. And so I would be hesitant to have you move forward tonight to vote on that because the notice for tonight's meeting didn't say that specifically. And with all due respect, I understand that you'd like to move forward, and I understand that as a personal matter as well. But I would just be hesitant to stand here and watch you all do that tonight without making at least a suggestion that you consider waiting until it appears on a notice that's been posted under the open meeting law for at least the 48 hours, not including Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays. That way there can be no challenge to the vote, and you don't open up the process to a challenge. And I always recommend that when you're going to do something substantive that's controversial, that you take away any procedural challenges that might exist. And so my recommendation would be you try to minimize that potential by waiting until it appeared on a meeting notice.
Another reason why I wanted to proceed tonight is because the town clerk is real busy, and this is just going to prolong extra work for the town clerk. So,
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
Councilor Marcucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. Ms. Goldberg, do you, in your years of experience, do you see that much difference in the reference, say, to a time frame if we put this before the voters versus and go into legislation, or versus us saying yes, have it go to the state, or let the voters petition, let their vote pass? If it passes in June, is there a difference in government?
In my opinion, there would be no change in the form of this town's government unless and until this bill, and I can make a list, and it sounds a little goofy, but I think it's worthwhile to think about. There would have to be a vote here, no. There would have to be a vote on the June election ballot, yes. It would get submitted to the general court as a bill. That can take anywhere from 6 to 12 months, sometimes longer, to turn around. I know you've had experience with that lately. You did the charter amendments last year. So it can take quite a bit of time to move forward through that process. During that entire time, there would be no change in the town's form of government. And you know, to go one step further, the actual text of the proposed petition is somewhat complex, in my opinion, and that may also cause the process to take a bit longer. There's no way ever to guarantee that the legislature will act favorably on any matter submitted to it, whether it's an initiative petition, whether it's a proposed amendment or a home rule petition started by the voters or by the council. It's very difficult to be able to anticipate that with certainty. So the only thing that would happen, in my view, is that there would be this delay while the town election process plays itself out. So a few months while that moves forward.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Certainly. Any other questions? Councilman Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Ms. Goldberg. One other question. So we vote no, it goes to the voters, and if it is supported, it goes to legislature. If it is acted upon, it comes back to the town. Now, then do we have to put back on the ballot for a charter commission?
Mr. Chairman? Sure. No. A straight answer, no. It's actually...
Why?
I know.
It is a charter, so...
No, it's a very good point. I think this is where what I was saying, that you kind of have to think about these as two separate paths. So you have the one path, which is the elected charter commission path, and that path has to be started by voters themselves. You need at least 15% of the registered voters of the town to want to answer the question of whether there should be an elected charter commission. So that process is just over here. It's not applicable to the current process. The current process is the process that would take place under the Home Rule Amendment, Section 8 of the Constitution. And that process says that the voters of the town may request that special legislation be passed applicable just to the single town, just to Southbridge. And if the council voted no, and it goes to the ballot, and the voters vote yes, that they're interested in that, and in amending the charter to restore a former form of government, then that vote would be forwarded with the legislation to the general court. Now, I had mentioned before this concept of voter acceptance, okay? There's nothing in the Constitution or the general laws that requires a special act to be accepted. In theory, if the legislature moved the bill forward and enacted it and the governor signed it, it could take effect immediately without any further action on behalf of the town. Or the town could request that it have a voter acceptance provision. And a voter acceptance provision would mean that the general court would pass the special legislation, and it would exist out there, just like you did with your recent charter amendments, but it wouldn't take effect until it came back to the voters as a binding question on whether the voters want this provision, this act, to be accepted.
Okay, I got that. So what if the voters did act on that and they did want that? Who would do our government?
Well,
the council's no longer.
yes.
We don't have elected selectmen. We don't have a town manager. Would it be up to the clerk?
My impression is that the amendment, the charter proposal, the amendment proposal, intends to address all of those issues. The question is whether it does it in a sufficient enough manner for the general court to be willing to enact it in the form that it's presented. And I can't answer that question. I don't know. I do know that House Counsel and Senate Counsel have very high standards when it comes to legislation. They have a very a specific set of requirements before they'll move something forward. So I don't know what their response to the proposal would be. Does that mean that the town's vote, if the council were to vote no and it were to go on the ballot, wouldn't be binding? no, it's still a binding vote of the town requesting the special legislation to be enacted. But whether the legislature would do that or not is something that we have no control over. It would be up to the general court to make that decision.
Thank you.
All set? Councilor Clements.
Okay, in your opinion, we bring it to the people, like we were discussing potentially doing here for June, and they vote yes. In your opinion, would you believe that that helps sway somewhat in term, so if we really want the people's voice to be heard and the legislators know that this town in its majority voted to do this, would you believe in your opinion that it would be more apt to then move forward on it in a positive manner, or what the voters would believe is a positive manner to change the government? I guess I'm looking at, what's in the best interest of the community. If this is what they really want, I want to make sure that it moves to that place that makes it a little more, it gives a little leg up to get what the voters want.
Mr. Chairman, I see it kind of 6 of one, half dozen of another. If the council supported it for the purpose of moving it forward, then the legislature would have that to rely on. The legislature would say 700 or so signatures were submitted. I forget the exact number, but this many signatures were those of registered voters of the town, and the council was supportive of this, at least in terms of moving it forward to the general court for action. So that's one kind of way of demonstrating support, versus going directly to the voters, which demonstrates a different kind of support. In that circumstance, the council would have voted no, and so the legislature would have to balance that. How many voters turned out for the election? Was it, a significant margin? And, where did the council stand after the fact? This type of proposal is inherently policy-driven, and there's going to be policy implications. And where the council stands on that ultimately, I do think the general court pays attention to that. And at the same time, the Constitution is written in such a way intentionally to allow voters to circumvent the will of the council so that the voters can go directly to the general court. So I see pluses and minuses on both sides. And certainly whenever there is something that is a significant change of this nature, there's going to be two sides to whether it's a good or a bad policy decision for the town, and likely there's elements of both.
All set, Councilor?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I thank Ms. Douse and Ms. Goldberg for coming and presenting that.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening. Moving on to agenda item number 8, Citizens Forum. Just please state your name and address, please.
My name is James Satilli, and I live on Pinedale Street in Southbridge, Massachusetts. During the latter part of 2013, I became extremely ill and had to endure a long recuperation. During the convalescent period, I had the opportunity to watch the town council proceedings in detail. I observed in detail a consistent complaint by several town councilors concerning, in their opinion, a disturbing trend by their constituents of not volunteering for committee assignments or other service to the town of Southbridge. They consistently asked folks to volunteer their time to serve on committee assignments. When I completed my convalescence, I made an application to serve on the Liquor Licensing Board alternate position, which had been open for some time. My application included a resume of my past vast experience, skills, education, and knowledge, including a curriculum vitae. I submitted this to the town manager's office. After waiting some time, I serendipitously encountered the chairman of the Liquor Licensing Board at a restaurant in Sturbridge, Massachusetts, and asked him directly if he had seen my application to the open alternate position on the Liquor Licensing Board. He told me that the applications are not sent to him for approval, and he stipulated that it could be considered a conflict of interest. The next day, I visited the town manager's office and asked his secretary if she had seen my application. She said yes, she had, and gave it to the chairman of the Liquor Licensing Board for his approval. I withdrew immediately to avoid what may become, in my opinion, an odorous situation in Denmark, and awaited the events to evolve to today. A few weeks after the encounter, and hearing nothing further from the town manager's office, I engaged 2 town councilors who said they would make queries concerning the issue for me. The result was tepid, to say the least. When I pressed the matter further, I was instructed by one at-large councilor that the town manager would call me and discuss the matter with me. He did so late on a Friday evening, approximately 3 weeks ago. He told me that I wasn't being considered for the open position because I had resigned as the first chairman of the Liquor Licensing Board several years ago. When I pressed him about his rationale behind that statement and why it had nothing to do with me reapplying for service to the town, I expressed to him my success in capturing 12 sunset licenses designed to help reinvigorate business in a town that was collapsing because of a lack of a viable business atmosphere. The town manager ended the discussion by telling me the position was no longer available and the conversation ended. Recently, I approached the chairman of the council and asked him to find out why I can't serve the community on a board that I am fully qualified for. The regulations that are in place now, I put in place with the committee, and I captured those licenses to invigorate business in this town. So far, I haven't heard anything, including from the chairman. But the sound of crickets is the only noise I hear. I'm sorry for the twisted metaphor, but however, it makes the point that your government is broken. And I'm a constituent. I went to 3 of you folks to represent me, and I have nothing to show for it. I want to serve the community. You complained constantly. You know, it's interesting to know, too, Chairman, that all the towns surround us have town meeting forms of government, and they are doing better business-wise than we are. Something to ponder in your... I don't know if you have an answer for me tonight, but I had to bring this to you, and I'm willing to listen what excuses you may have for not allowing me to serve this community.
Mr. Reed, go ahead.
I'd say, first of all, Mr. Satilli, the councilors did follow up. I heard from several of them.
I haven't.
And I would say, since you have a very different recollection of the phone conversation that we had, maybe I would prefer that we continue this in my office.
He has the floor right now.
I don't intend to discuss the ins and outs of it right now. If you want to come to my office, I'll be happy to meet with you and discuss it further.
This is an open forum. I'd like to see how different the conversation is, your view versus mine. I'm not a dishonest man. I am honest. I tell the truth. Mm-hmm. If you have a differing view of what that conversation was, I'd like to hear it now in front of the people.
All I'm going to say is the reason that I gave was not because you had formally been on the commission. The reason
are your words.
Yeah, I did mention that as an observation. That wasn't the reason. And also, you made it sound like I ended the conversation, which is not true. And I'm willing to continue the conversation, but in my office.
For what purpose?
No. We're not going to have a debate.
Well, you opened it for debate.
We're
I
not going to
didn't.
have a debate. You stated your opinion on our government. I respect your decision. I don't agree with it all, but we're not going to have an open debate on this. He just
Okay.
invited you into his office.
Respectfully, Mr. Chairman, how come you didn't return my petition to you the other day?
You contacted me at the end of a meeting. I have a life just like we all do here, okay? I did speak to him. I'm one of them that spoke to him. Maybe, again, you're looking for an answer. You're looking for something that you just want to hear. And sometimes, quite frankly,
I have the right.
I get disappointed in life too, just like you get disappointed.
I don't need life lessons, sir.
We're not going
Answer
to
my
have a
question.
debate on this. Thank you, Mr. Santilli.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Good evening.
Hi, I'm John Phipps, 67 South Street. I'm for preserving the historical integrity of Southbridge. And in 2002, we won an award for a well-maintained historical property for the restoration and renovation of the facade of the building. And since then, we've worked very hard and put a lot of money into our property. In fact, we're down to one room left in our first floor apartment, which is being restored right now. So this property will be a benefit for the town. In fact, the whole neighborhood, if you up near the Vienna Inn, on that stretch of road there between the Vienna Inn and the hospital, if you notice all of the improvements to those properties in there, well, we were one of the first people in town to restore those properties, to restore our property. So I feel very proud of what we've done in that area. However, I don't think downtown has really done a good job of keeping up with us, for example. And just bear with me. I want the downtown to keep its historical properties. We have many historical properties with great potential. And I'm against the tearing down of any historical properties in town. And specifically with a convenience store and a gas station. I walked here tonight, and what I did was I didn't really take notes, but I just put in my mind, I passed Marcy Street, which has a light and a cross sign. I passed Rite Aid, which, by the way, is a very nice, old-looking, kept up with, I think, the historical nature of the town. I passed a beautiful old church, which I hope we don't tear that down someday. And I passed Dunkin' Donuts, which if I were a young lady or a young man taking a walk with their baby, I would be challenged to negotiate that strip of area, because you could have cars coming in and out. I walk down a lot to the Dunkin' Donuts, and there's always cars coming in and out. So you're challenged just by walking that far. Now you have to negotiate CVS. Cars coming in and out. There's a garage back there, cars coming in and out. And now we want to put a Cumberland Farms in there, tear down that property, that beautiful old house. We're going to tear that down. I understand anyhow. So I ask you all to move against the Cumberland Farms type of business downtown. I think it's sort of like urban sprawl, and that is not what I would like to see my downtown to be. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to come to speak? Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. I've been sitting back there having a hard time hearing, so I kind of overreacted. Good evening, Town Council. My name's Kevin Buxton, 257 Elm Street. I've been here before. I haven't been here in a while. There's a few, it's a very busy season. There's quite a bit going on right now. And one of the emphasis that the council always makes is the fact that the homework and the details to a lot of items that come before this council occur during subcommittee meetings. I've asked in the past before, and I realize that the cable staff is not in the purview of the council or the town manager per se, but if we could start getting coverage of subcommittee meetings, especially during important times of year like the budget consideration. I've been through the budget situation a few times, and there always seems to be two seasons. There's the season in January where we're not talking about the budget, we're just setting the ratio between residential, commercial, and we're showing you taxpayers the tax levy, and we could raise this much taxes, but we're only raising this much. And then we get to the second part of the season where is now, and the budget is finalized, and we have concerns and regulations and deadlines to make to get the budget into the state, and it seems to always come that we got to make that deadline. We got to make that deadline. Over the years, I haven't been able to figure out what time is a citizen concerned about budget considerations or the tax rate supposed to come forward. And in light of the complication of the budget system, if it's a situation where the budget system has gotten to the point where you can't expect a layman to stick their fingers into a, I don't know where we're at now, $57, $58 million budget, then my question would be, my representatives, my counselors, when do you give your input as to budgets, concerns, spending? Because I haven't been able to see it. It always seems we're in one season or the other, and there never seems to be any open discussion about how can we fix what we've been steamrolling. I made a comment once about after the economy of the last 5 years, if we ever, any possibility of, for the sake of those people on fixed incomes, for the economy which is doing bad, if we could ever, just for 1 year, have zero tax rate. I'm not living in some panacea where I would ever see my taxes go down. But I just asked, we've been struggling for 5 years to see our way out of this economy, and we're not there yet. And yet this year we're looking at a 4.5% raise in taxes, a raise in water, a raise in sewer. The pain goes on, it continues. I don't know what else to ask, but when does my representative government have the ability to make adjustments to avoid this ever-growing budget? I don't know. I'm stymied by the fact that I realized Mr. Reed's, I sat through a couple of subcommittee meetings, and this is not Mr. Reed's budget. We've already had the going away party and everybody ate the cake, yet I suppose it's Mr. Clark's budget. It was the understanding that Mr. Clark got a better position somewhere else. But I'm really curious whether it's just a situation where he didn't want to present this 4.5% budget to the public. Another question I might have is, how long ago did any of you or the town manager himself know we had this budget coming for fiscal year 2015? When do you know that next year is going to be higher than last year? Like I said, I don't live in a panacea. I don't expect it to go down. I also don't expect that we can't, in some way, shape, or form, if not as a private citizen, as a governing body, my representatives have some control and say within it. I also like to talk a little bit about the procedural matter of the 3 readings of the bylaws. My understanding of the 3 readings of the bylaw is those 3 readings are for the public to hear the changes coming. I don't expect that if an amendment is to be made at the first reading, at the second reading, at the third reading, you're well capable of making amendments to them at all 3 readings. But at that point, when you amend that, we should go back to square one because it's no longer the bylaw. It's the bylaw as amended, and this is its first reading again. We can't continue this, no, we're going to do this reading, we're going to do that reading. The ideas of 3 readings is you present to the public 3 clear, understand readings of the bylaw, no debate, no question. Any questions or debates should be coming from your citizens who have concerns and questions about it. That's why the 3 readings are there. If somebody comes up on the 3rd and final reading and doesn't give a strong enough point to stop your vote, it's not going to stop your vote. I've been there before. Not on 3rd readings, but on decisions before the council. I can't sway you in my 3 minutes. This is probably up. There's nothing I can do. I can't go after the meeting and say, I told you so. I avoid doing that. Otherwise, I'd have a list a mile long. My final
Mr.
comment.
Buxton, do you need more time?
Yes, please. Another 3 minutes and I'll be done.
All in favor? Go ahead, Mr. Buxton.
Another situation, I attended the General Government Subcommittee meeting on Phase 2 of the landfill extension. Over the years, I've had a little bit to say about the landfill. Despite what some people think, I've never been trying to close it. However, at this point here in time, I can't see any reason to extend its life for the simple fact that over the 7 years since the extension agreement, 2007, our taxes have gone up every year. The revenue generated by it has not saved us in that respect. I made a point at the General Government Subcommittee. Sorry I didn't make the attendance list. I made the point that the decisions concerning not only landfill, town manager is our solid waste manager, he's our water commissioner, he's our sewer commissioner. He sits down and negotiates all these ifs, ands, or buts concerning the town. And here too, I would like to be assured that the town manager's decisions are made with the input of my 9 representatives. If it is a situation where the town manager sits in negotiation with these people and then brings forward a common goals letter and asks for a yay or nay vote from the council, no input, no amendments, yay or nay, this is my job, I do all the negotiations. Once again, I don't see my representatives being part of the decision. And as far as all the landfill issues, I'm not really seeing where it could justify being executive session, because it's not like somebody's going to come in and outbid our present contractor and take over our landfill. That's not going to happen. That's not part of these negotiations. And as such, I think it's a transparency that needs to be made clearer. The landfill is important. However, what is really important to the residents of this town, I mean, the $2.2 million might sound good, but what really matters is if the landfill fills up, we still receive curbside pickup. Yes, we live in a golden world where our trash gets picked up and taken away someplace else. We're no longer responsible for maintaining the whole, not only for our trash, but the whole for everybody else's trash. And yes, there's a big asset there because we'll be one of 2 landfills. But till 2027, we can live in that fantasy world. It's not going to cost us anything to have our trash and our recycling go away. I've always had a bigger picture thinking that we should be doing more processing of not only the MSW, but from day one, we should have been processing our own recycling right here in town and not shipping it to Auburn. However, I've never been able to get any backing for that idea. One presentation I did make at EHS was on recycling rewards. And I'm glad to hear it's going to come back for further subcommittee hearings, and I will do my best to get what was my concept of a recycling program, rewards together, and hopefully give you something to chew on, because it's another situation where over the years we always talked about it, we just never got around to it. And recycle rewards, processing of our own recycling, processing of MSW, and to reduce the filling of the landfill. Another committee I'm also on is sustainability.
Mr. Boston, I'm going to ask you to please finish up.
Okay, 30. I'm also on the sustainability committee. In the next sustainability committee, I'll be asking that committee to look at a sustainable landfill. And I think it's attainable without filling the additional 20 acres. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Buxton. Good evening.
Good evening, Mike Murray, Lynn Lane. Can you hear me? No. Tom, sorry. Can you hear me now? Thank you. I'm here tonight to discuss some concerns and to offer some potentially good news. Since school committee meeting minutes do not include public comments, I want what I have to say reflected in this meeting's minutes. There needs to be a permanent record documenting public reaction to what happened at the March 25th school committee meeting, and it simply won't happen at theirs. I'd like to address the entire guidance staff, the former athletic director, and any other town employee who was publicly referenced at that meeting. I'm sorry. I'm extending you an apology for putting people in place whose judgment was so faulty that they thought that was a good thing to do to employees and in public. It was a shameful act. It was embarrassing to watch. The ones conducting this brutal public employee evaluation are the ones responsible for much, if not all, of what they were criticizing the employees for in regards to curriculum, outdated job descriptions, and tasks assigned as daily routines. It truly highlighted why the state lists our school district as level 4, underperforming, yet none of our schools are. To Southbridge town employees on the school side, you deserve better, and you have for a very long time. We only see public praise for employees on the town government side because the adage, praise in public and criticize in private, is understood. The public berating of school employees that took place simply wouldn't be tolerated on the town government side. The superintendent said the Southbridge standard was equal to the lowest teacher. He's wrong. What we witnessed by these officials was the Southbridge substandard. Our state declared level 4 governance behaving at its worst. So again, to the school's town employees, you deserve to be treated well and decently like every other town employee. I'm sorry, we put people in place that don't understand that, and worse, who won't even apologize to you themselves. For the potentially good news, tonight I also have an update on Senate Bill 1804. 3 days prior to the superintendent saying that no one did anything about school choice, Senate Bill 1804 moved forward another step, passing favorably out of the Joint Committee of Education and into the hands of the Ways and Means Committee. This progress wouldn't have been possible if not for a collaboration of a private citizen and town government. That very same combination attempted to do something back in 2005 when school choice first bloomed. A 2.5 petition was brought forward by the citizenry, and the council put it on the ballot for the people to decide. Likewise, with this latest round of solicitation, the council and former town manager offered their support for this Senate bill through actions in letters, phone calls, and town council representation in testifying at the State House. That is certainly far more than the nothing offered by the school leadership side. Saying no one did anything is not factual. I reject that statement because to me, it's more an admission of guilt on the school department, both past and especially present, rather than the fault of the people of Southbridge. However, I'll let you ponder those facts and decide for yourself who did something and who did nothing. I remain optimistic about Senate Bill 1804, chances of becoming law, in restricting school choice solicitation through use of public funds. I'll keep you informed of what happens with it going forward. This bill only addresses the external aspects of school choice. It is up to the school district leadership to properly address the internal and to do something about those aspects without making them worse. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Yes, councilors.
Thank you. Mr. Murray, could you answer a question? Or could you?
Thank you.
For those who are not familiar, could you just mention what prompted 1804?
Sure.
I'm sure there's many things, but I know in particular there was one incident in
Well,
terms of spending public money for private, for...
Yes, back in 2005, a first solicitation letter went out to this community for school choice students, and it was from the Quabog School District. Nothing was done about it then, other than the citizens getting together for the 2.5 petition, and this council putting it on the ballot to let the people decide. Unfortunately, it didn't pass, and it set a set of circumstances that we're living with today. Last year, many of us got a solicitation from Quabog once again, only this time they were going after our elementary education students. So to compound that for 12 years of school choice money leaving this town. And someone did do something about that. Ethics letters went through, the town manager got the state senator involved, the state rep involved, and Senate Bill 1804 was born from that. And it's gone forward. The House of Ways and Means Committee, they look at the financial aspect. And I want you to know, the Quabog School District spent $5,000 to send out that solicitation, and they received a return on investment, $150,000 in new school choice tuition. Spend $5,000, get $150,000, and that's your money going in their school district, and that's just wrong. This does not affect the parent's right to go for school choice. That's their right. What it only does is limit taxpayer money solicited school choice students in other communities to pilfer their taxes. That's what the bill is about.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. I only asked that question mainly because I've had some comment recently by somebody who commented that it doesn't cost us for school choice. I want you to be very clear and tell your friends, tell everybody else in Southbridge when you wonder why your tax dollars go up a lot of times too. There's a side that we have no control. Every student that goes to another school, whether it be Quabog, Tantascwa, somewhere, it costs this town money. It costs you tax dollars. So just be aware of that. It's not a freebie. The state doesn't give us all the money to pay for school choice. It comes from us. And when I started 5 years ago, it was about $750,000 a year, and I believe we're at 1.2 or so. $1.2 million a year of our budget is to send students somewhere else, and 60% or so of our budget is to maintain our own school system. So do some numbers there, and when you're asking why your taxes are going up, because it costs more and more and more every year. It's not necessarily the cruiser or the fire truck. Many times it's that percentage from the school budget. Thanks for letting me say those words.
Comment?
Yeah, just make it
Yes.
brief. Thank you.
And it's also I want to make it very clear that if a community, it costs less to educate a child, and it costs more in your community, as it does in Southbridge, the receiving community receives your tax rate for the child. So if it costs them less, not only are they educating the child there, but they need a science lab, Southbridge tax dollars are paying for a science lab somewhere else. If they need a language program, your tax dollars are paying for something else. If they need a bus to get all those kids here, who do you think is paying for it? Thank you.
One of the, Councilor Marcucci has a question.
No, it's just a comment to what you were saying, and it's very brief. We had received some information last week about state statistics on school choice. The average in Massachusetts through transfers in schools is probably around 1.43% where students transfer for school choice. Southbridge is 10.43 in school choice. The numbers are huge. We are the highest, 10.43 versus state average of 1.42, I believe, or 1.43. Just a point to the citizenry of Southbridge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't want to prolong anything.
Yeah. Councilor Mann, do you have a question?
Yes, it was just a comment to Mr. Murray. You mentioned that citizens' comments aren't recorded in the minutes
Correct.
for the school committee. Well, they should be, because that's part of the open meeting law, so that might be something you might want to look into.
It used to be, and it changed in 2005, and since then, the chambers for the school committee have been empty. I think they should really revisit that.
I don't believe the open meeting law changed just for the school committee.
No. The school committee did that under Dr. Hanley as superintendent.
Well, then that's something you may want to look up with the state, because I believe if they did that, they could be in violation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Moriarty.
Just as a clarification, not that I necessarily agree with the way it's done, but my understanding is the reason they don't put that in their minutes is because their public input comes before they actually open their meeting. I know Mike attends a lot of the meetings, and I've attended a number, but the way their agenda is set up, and if you recall, a couple years ago, there was a big consternation as to whether or not citizens could even communicate, and there still are issues, or have been issues, where you're not supposed to comment on something that's in the agenda, or rather on the agenda later on until you're on that agenda item, and whether or not citizens are able to actually speak at that point. and the way the school committee has run it the last number of years has been that citizens do not take part in the actual business meeting per se, and that they have their I think it's called public input as opposed to citizens forum that we have. Their public input actually takes place before they begin their meeting. That's why it wouldn't be in their meeting minutes, is simply because the meeting hasn't begun. Again, not saying I agree with the method. I think it should be part of the meeting. Those agenda items in my mind should be reversed, but that's the rationale that they've offered. Again, not saying I'm supporting of that, but just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that for me, Council Moriarty. However, I would think that if citizens, then why would they go up and talk if they have no input? They're going to have no influence. So that would still be something that I, as a citizen, will look into. Thank you, though, for that clarification.
Council comments.
Just building on that, there's a quorum. They're at a meeting with a quorum, whether they've opened it or not. I don't watch many school committee meetings, I'm going to be honest about that, only a few. There has been interaction with the speakers, yes, from school committee members. Well, guess what, people? That's an open meeting. Whether you gavelled it and said you were there or not, whenever a quorum is present and you are talking issues and making your statements known, that is a public meeting. I would certainly bring that to the school committee's attention and suggest that they comply with the open meeting laws. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
John Plosky, 3 Jennison Street. I've got a quick question. It was asked at the General Government Subcommittee meeting. I wouldn't expect necessarily that people would have the answer on the top of their head, and I don't expect someone to have the answer on the top of their head tonight, but perhaps the interim town manager or the chairman or a subcommittee chair can answer this question at the next meeting. I'd respectfully request that that could be done. And that is, in the first half of March, on the about half dozen people have asked me about this, a question about the landfill. I'd like to know what's going on there, but you know, it's a challenge for anyone to really know everything that's going on up there. There was a report in the Worcester Telegram and Gazette, real estate transfers, of a $20,000 acquisition by Southbridge Recycling and Disposal Park, which is the subsidiary of Casella that does business at the landfill. And I'm just curious, as are others, if that is, for example, one of the industrial park lots, or if it's some property closer to the landfill itself. And I just would like to know about that. Perhaps someone could answer sometime soon. That's all. Thank you, ladies and
Mr.
gentlemen.
Reed will look into that for you. Thank you. Anyone else? Moving on. Agenda item number 9, vote to authorize the town manager to sign an agreement for traffic impact peer review on behalf of the planning board and special permitting granted authority with funding to come from the applicant, Cumberland Farms. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Council Marcucci.
Mr. Chair, just a clarification. With this agenda item, and I just want to clarify, all we're doing is to agree for the town manager to sign an agreement for a traffic study, and that is it. Something that has to be done by law, Mr. Reed?
Well, I don't know if it has to be. I don't know if it has to be done by law, but I think it's a prudent measure to take, and it's being paid by the applicant.
Council Clemens.
I think I can clarify a little bit. At the meeting, it was told to us that the planning board could ask for certain things in regard to this type of plan going forward, and they did ask for a traffic study, and that by law, they're allowed to have the applicant pay, but it's the planning board who chooses who does the traffic studies. So the planning board chose a company, was choosing a company, but the applicant, Cumberland Farms, has to submit the money. Now, they don't have to actually ask us to do what we're doing right here. They could just have it paid for, but Karen, Harnoy, wanted just everything to be in the up and up, that we're accepting the money, and then the money goes out and pays the contractor for the traffic study. So it's a formality on our part. We have no right in the decision on the traffic study. It is something that the planning board is asking, which is in their rights on this particular project. So does that clarify? I mean, it's going through our system of paying, so they just felt better if it was on the books that we knew money was coming in and money was going out for this purpose. It's housekeeping.
Any other questions? Councilor Moriarty.
Just noting that, at least in my mind, looking at this, I'm going to be voting yes on this, partially because I think it will help, similar to audits and things like that we've done in the past, it would help to substantiate the traffic concerns that we've had and that numerous people have had, as well as kind of what options are there if this was to move forward. But I think this gives us a more professional and detailed look as to the ins and outs, pros and cons. So for that reason, I'm in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Anyone else? Councilor Nicole.
Thank you. I attended the meeting, Planning and Development Subcommittee meeting, specifically for this item because I needed more information. Like the gentleman that came up to Citizens Forum this evening, I'm not a huge fan of the idea of having another convenience store and gas station specifically on Main Street. However, I have to say that I was glad that I attended the meeting because a lot of my concerns were put at ease. It has this particular company, Cumberland Farms. If you happen to go through any towns in the area, it seems like Cumberland Farms is having a resurgence. They're building an awful lot of their convenience stores all over, and they're huge. But this one in Southbridge is going to comply with a lot of the concerns that the Redevelopment Authority had, that Mrs. Ackley had, and frankly, I feel a lot better about it after having attended that meeting. And just to kind of reiterate what Councilor Clements was saying, this whole reason for it being here is because the money is being funneled basically through the town, even though the town is not paying this. So I'm comfortable with this traffic study because I agree. I think it will alleviate some of the traffic issues that we already have in existence before anything even goes into that area. And I will support this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? Mr. Buxton.
Mr. Chairman, Kevin Buxton, 257. I'm glad to see the traffic study. I have heard comments about the fact that, well, this is a private sale, and the private sale is going to go through. It doesn't matter what the town wants. I would like to think that if the traffic study shows an issue, it could avoid the facility from being placed there. After the traffic study, I think we need to look at health and safety concerns with having that much gasoline that close to our central historic core. I think we pointed out that pedestrian traffic, though is not a huge percentage, is increasing. We try to make our downtown walk-friendly, having a large block of like that taken out of there. There are many concerns. Traffic is just one of them. And I hope we continue to look at each and every step prior to giving total carte blanche approval to say, well, there's nothing we can do. There's going to be a huge Cumberland Farms in the center of town. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Clements.
I just want to reiterate some information. People are contacting, I'm sure more than just myself, other councilors about this project. You need to keep in mind that we as the council have very little, if anything at all, to say or vote on this project. This is under Planning Board's jurisdiction, and all the information will go through Planning Board, and Planning Board will do their due diligence and decide if the zoning's right and decide if the conformity's right and decide all those wonderful things. And without being discriminatory, it's not our place to, we can not like it. We can be a lot of things, but it's my understanding from the planning department that it won't come to a vote for us personally because the zoning is there. I could be really wrong, but that's how it was explained to me. So on that note, I'm finished, and maybe Larry.
Thank you. Mr. Spinelli.
Larry Spinelli, 258 Lebanon Hill, member of the Southbridge Planning Board for almost 30 years now, and a town councilor for a few years in between. I wasn't going to get up here and speak. I was here to support the planning board and its initiative on this request for the type of funding that we do for the traffic study. Let me make it clear. Part of the application from Cumberland Farms is that they submit their own traffic study. And obviously they're doing that to justify the special permit being granted to them so that they can put the Cumberland Farms store there. The planning board, who is not predisposed to grant this, it's not a done deal as people quote in the newspapers or anything else. This is a board with a number of people who are very concerned about what happens to this town. The board is made up of people who have more years of experience in planning and development than, and I know this is going to be taken wrong, than all the members up here on the council themselves. If you add up all of our years, Mr. Pear has 27, 28, Mrs. Ackley has gazillions of years, I have almost 30. So we're not here just to arbitrarily or capriciously approve a special permit for something that is so vital and so intense or so sensitive as what is being applied for here. And to say those kinds of comments, to have them quoted in the newspaper as a done deal, is the most asinine comments, statements that I've ever heard. To such an extent that an individual called me on the phone and I just went ballistic because he said it was a done deal. And my wife came running into the room and was very concerned, not only about my language, but my blood pressure as well. So what we are asking for here is a tool to enable us to have our own traffic study done so that there is two studies. Instead of just accepting what is presented by Cumberland Farms, is that we have our own engineer do a separate traffic study. And then we can use those tools as a basis for making a decision. And that's what's important here. And you're going to be asked again to go back because apparently the architectural design thing wasn't included on this motion, and we need that as well. There have been substantive changes that have been made in this application since the time it came to the planning board to begin with. We have listened to public input. We listened to constructive input, not emotional, not fly-by-night, but constructive input. And that's why this motion is important tonight. But for this board, I ask you to please take with a grain of salt comments that come forward that say, oh, this is a done deal. Because I tell you what, it sickens me to no end. And I personally take it as slanderous when somebody makes a comment like that and it comes back to me. Because that's how serious I take my responsibility as serving on the planning board. Thank you very much.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councillor Clements?
Yes.
Councillor Langevin?
Yes.
Councillor Manna?
Yes.
Councillor Marcucci?
Yes.
Councillor Moriarty?
Yes.
Councillor Nicola?
Yes.
Councillor Vandal?
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Just
Point of order?
for the record, my
Left
name
off
was not
Carrasco.
called.
Yeah.
Starting with Clements.
You missed one. Councilor
Oh,
Carrasco.
sorry. Councillor Carrasco?
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 9A, emergency vote to transfer $17,898.39 from Town Council Reserve Account to School unemployment account to pay for February school unemployment invoices. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion on this? Council Clements.
Through you to the town manager. This number is quite significant, and we've been covering a number of unemployment increases over the last year. Quite loud in the back, Mr. Chair. I can't hear myself. Do you know where we're at number-wise on unemployment at all, in terms of costs from the school department? Because again, once again, this is part of what we have to prepare for in our budget. So do you know, is there a projection yet? Has the school even given you a projection?
No. We've, not just myself, but others in this building, the town accountant, have requested information for the remainder of this year, and we've also requested information for fiscal 15, and we've just simply not gotten it. I understand the council's frustration. I saw it at the subcommittee meeting. I share it with you about what's budgeted right now. I'm sure that number is going to change, but I think that we would need some input, some guidance from the school department so that we're not changing it 2 or 3 times and we'll just change it once. I have no reason to believe that it isn't going to go up. I really have no reason to believe anything right now, but the short answer is no. Nothing for 14 and nothing for 15 from the school department.
Okay. And do we have any idea, I'm not sure, I can't remember if there was a number at our committee meetings, in terms of where we're at from a year ago or to now, or 2 years ago from now? Do we know how far we've gone up percentage-wise with the unemployment from there?
I can get those numbers. I know that this number is higher. I even had those numbers in the budget presentation about how it had bounced up and down, but I mean, we're calculating that just the school portion of unemployment, and the town portion is, compared to the school portion, is negligible, but the school portion of unemployment for this year will be about $320,000. And, you know, there are comments that have been made at public meetings that next year it's going to be higher, but we don't have anything substantive to make a decision on yet.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. It makes a big difference, I think, to the people. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Carrasco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Agenda item number 10, vote to approve the proposed graffiti bylaw as prepared by the General Government Subcommittee on March 3rd, 2014, and amended at the Town Council meeting on March 24th, 14.
So moved.
And I will pass it over to Councilor Manna. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The amended to correct Section 7-503.3 C, approved at Town Council meeting 3/24/14, was to bring the fine from $300 down to $150. And Councilor Carrasco made that motion to amend, and it was seconded, and it was approved. So this is the third and final reading. Section 7-503, graffiti. Section 7-503.1, removal of graffiti. Graffiti is defined as any word, figure, or painted design that is marked, etched, scratched, drawn, painted, pasted, or otherwise affixed to or any surface, regardless of the nature of the material of that structural component, to the extent the same was not authorized in advance by the owner thereof. Section 7-503.2, property owner responsibility. A, the removal of graffiti shall be the responsibility of the owner of said property. B, the owner of said property shall be required to remove the graffiti within 14 days of written notice from the Board of Health or its authorized agent, served upon the owner or the owner's authorized agent. The notice given to the property owner or its authorized agent shall be in writing and contain an order to remove the graffiti. The notice to the property owner or authorized agent shall contain the following information. 1, the location of property that has been vandalized. 2, a clear description of the graffiti. 3, a statement that the graffiti must be removed within 14 days after receipt of notice. 4, a statement explaining if graffiti is not removed within the allotted 14 days, the property will be subject to the removal, cost, and penalty provisions of Section 7-503.2. 5, notification of an owner's right to a hearing pursuant to Section 7-503.2. Copies of all referenced sections of the bylaw shall be attached to said notice. Section 7-503.3, failure to remove graffiti. A, the property owner or its authorized agent has a right to a hearing before the Board of Health or its authorized agent within 7 days after receipt of such notice. B, if any owner or the owner's authorized agent has not requested a hearing within 7 days after receiving notice and fails or refuses to remove graffiti within the given time frame provided in Section 7-503.3, the town of Southbridge may enter upon the property and remove the graffiti, to which it will be the property's owner's responsibility for the cost of said removal, along with any fines imposed. C, if an owner or the owner's authorized agent has not requested a hearing within 7 days after receiving notice and fails or refuses to remove graffiti within the given time frame provided in Section 7-503.3, the property owner will be subject to a fine of $150. D, if an owner or the owner's authorized agent has not requested a hearing within 7 days after receiving notice and fails or refuses to remove graffiti within the given time frame provided in Section 7-503.3, the town of Southbridge may enter upon the property and remove the graffiti, to which it will be the property owner's responsibility for the cost of said removal, along with any fines imposed. E, if an owner or the owner's authorized agent has been ordered to remove said graffiti after a hearing and fails to comply with said order within 14 days, the property owner will be subject to a fine of, and here we need to strike out that $300 and put $150 in there. That's what that should read. A fine of $150. The town of Southbridge may enter upon said property and remove the graffiti, to which will be the property's owner's responsibility for the cost of said removal. Section 7-503-4, applicable laws. Nothing in this bylaw shall be construed to limit in any way the town of Southbridge's authority to order the abatement of a nuisance as set forth in Mass General Law, Chapter 111, Section 123, as noted below, or any other general laws. I, Section 123, said board shall order the owner or occupant of any private premises at his own expense to remove any nuisance, source of filth, or cause of sickness found thereon within 24 hours or within such other time as it considers reasonable after notice, and an owner or occupant shall forfeit not more than $1,000 for every day during which he knowingly violates such order.
Yes, I was the one that made an amendment to bring the fee down, and tonight, even after I left, I continued to think about this. Again, I still think this fee is very high in regards to the victim. In reality, we're going after the victim. I understand we want to clean up, and I understand the part of the reason why we want to establish this. But I would like to make an amendment tonight. Again, Section 7-50C.3, C&E, I would like to strike the last two words of $150 and replace it with from the schedule of penalties A through C in accordance to Section 1-111 of our current bylaws. This is page 6 of our bylaws, and it would, basically the fees would be for a first-time violation of any provision in the first calendar year, it would be $25. For the second violation of the same provision within the same year, it would be $50. And for the third and subsequent violation of the same provision, it would be $100. Again, I believe that we need to look at this wholeheartedly. I really think we are penalizing the victim, and that's why I make this motion tonight, to make a motion to amend Section 7-503.3. I got Councilor Nicola first.
Well, I don't know if anybody intended to second it.
I haven't heard it.
Second.
Okay.
Councilor Nicola.
Thank you. I'm not in support of that, and I'll say why. I am in support of changing from 300 to 150, but just in the idea of lowering it or doing whatever, right from the get-go, when I read the graffiti bylaw, felt bad about property owners. However, we do not have a graffiti bylaw right now. There is no pain of penalty or fine, and yet there's plenty of property, business property in this community right now that has graffiti on it. Nobody that owns that property has lifted one finger to clean it up, and it's been well over a year that some of that property is vandalized. So my mindset is, what is the where is your motivation as an owner of your property? At what point are you motivated to clean up your vandalized property? And the idea that we should be penalizing the people who do the vandalizing, good luck in finding them. That's a joke to make an offer, an opinion, to have that as an alternative. You're not going to find the people that vandalize people's property. Where are you going to find them? Who's going to turn them in? Who's going to take a picture and say that's the person? And then how are you going to get anything done with that person? I'm not a huge proponent of Southbridge has to look picture perfect. I've long ago given up that ghost. However, I am a proponent of being responsible for my own stuff. And if I own property and it's got graffiti on the wall or the side of the building, I mean, how long does it take for you to get up enough cash to clean that up? I'm looking at graffiti that's been there for well over a year. So lowering, the bylaw amounts, the fine amounts at this point when we don't even have a bylaw is kind of a joke. It's free right now. Nobody's holding you responsible for cleaning up the mess on the side of your building, and people still don't do anything about it. So no, I have no interest in amending this any more than what it is. I think people in this town have an awful lot of they should be grateful for the way things are because they get away with a lot that a lot of other communities don't allow. We look the other way, and we don't enforce a lot of the things that we probably should enforce. And, all the good intentions in the world and all the charity in the world doesn't seem to mean much. I mean, how long really? I hate to repeat myself, but how long do I have to look at this every time I go by certain, main roads? And people just don't care about their business. It's like, forget about it. So you think a bylaw, shaving down the fine is going to make a difference? They're not even doing it now. So I'm not in support of dropping it below $150. Thank you.
Councilor Vandal.
I'm not in support of this bylaw because we're punishing the victim. It's not their fault that somebody wrote on them. Why do we want to come down on them, hardball? I can't support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I just want to let you all know that when I was researching this through the several towns that I researched, I was able to talk with somebody from Brookline, a police officer who enforced this law. And he told me that the majority of the business owners, the property owners, they didn't have a problem with their bylaws, and they actually worked together. So with something like this, you're talking about a fine. Well, if the business owner or the property owner, whomever it may be, goes to the Board of Health and say, I need to work something out with you, I don't think our Board of Health is going to say, no, we're not going to do anything with you. I think they're going to work together. And I also got that same feeling from Springfield also. And I believe I sent you all my notes and the emails on this when I was doing this research, so you would have that information. So I really do think that the Board of Health and the business owners can work together on this and potentially avoid a fine altogether. But I want to emphasize the accountability that we all talk about up here, and something that some of us actually ran on, accountability, holding people accountable. And I believe that there are some of the property owners in town that really care about, I know too, a Village Photo got rid of their, the graffiti right away, and I know Floods was hit with the graffiti too, and they painted that graffiti, they got rid of that graffiti. I think the majority of the business owners, the property owners, those are the absentee ones that don't see this. So this, again, like I said at the last meeting, I'll say it again now, this can be used as a tool to let somebody know that their building's been vandalized. Maybe they don't know. So that's all I want to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Carrasco.
Yeah, at no point in time is this being taken away. The reason is, I think the fee is outrageous. I think the fee is, whether it's 300, 150, 100, I mean, for somebody that was the victim, I mean, we have a property on West Street, a fence that has been a tagging place for not only this past year, but since I was a kid, 15, 20 plus years. Who owns it? Is it a town fence? Or is it private property? I mean, being proactive and being accountable as a government, we have to do, it starts here. It starts with our DPW. If our properties are damaged and our properties are not taken care of, we're not being accountable ourselves. So, but it's an injustice to impose a fee, and I understand that we're going after absentee landlords. Regardless, if it's $150 or $25, it's still money that they're gonna get charged. But I think about the person that lives in the corner of Union in Maine. There's been a picture or a little stencil of a person with an arm sticking up. That's been there for 10 plus years. What about if it's an 80-year-old lady that lives there? We're going to tap her for $150 when she lives in a highly crime area, and it's not her responsibility. Yes, it's her building. Yes, it's money either way, whether it's $150, whether it's $25, but $150, $300, it's ridiculous. That's why, and if they refuse, we're going up. We're getting more money. That's the only purpose I'm bringing this to the table. Again, I think $150, $300, it's absurd. It's outrageous. But it's not being eliminated. It's not being taken out. I'm not voting to take this whole graffiti bylaw out. I'm looking at the fee. I'm looking at a victim's perspective. That's a lot of money. The bylaw's still going to be enforced, I hope. But at the end of the day, we're still charging money. Whether it's $150 or $25, that's why I'm presenting it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Moriarty.
Thank you. Since we started discussing this in subcommittee, that was my lone concern. My big concern had been, kind of the victim of a crime being the one held responsible, which, they're being held responsible for somebody else's action, and that's been the lone issue for me to that point. I think, I agree and disagree with some of the comments that have been made so far tonight, and among them, I think is that we don't have this bylaw in effect currently, similar to what Councilor Nicola had pointed out. I think I look at it in a different point of view as to her, in that, for me, having the lesser fine, if you will, is probably the more appropriate starting point, and then if it's not effective at that point, you would build up from it, rather than kind of starting with that sticker shock, shock and awe sort of approach. Again, you know, my biggest issue with this has been whomever you are, whether you're a wealthy business owner, a wealthy absentee landlord, or you're somebody that's there on a USDA loan, or you know, is in a home because your grandmother bought it 100 years ago and it's passed down through the family, and that's the only reason you own the house, because you don't have two nickels to rub against each other. To me, that's my big issue. Is so the more we can do to alleviate what's going on to, again, I hate to over-dramatize it, but the victim of the crime, rather than kind of going after them for something that they're innocent in. I think Councilor Manna pointed out, you know, in other towns, other cities, and even within our own city or our own town, depending on how you want to look at it, you know, different businesses have taken the steps to clean up the graffiti on there. So I don't think we need a $150, $300 fine for that first time out. You know, it's to me, it's killing a fly with a sledgehammer. So, thank you. That's it.
Yeah. Any other questions? Councilor Clements.
I think it's a good bylaw in terms of setting a standard, and there's nothing wrong with us setting standards for our community, that we could all have a nicer community. In terms of the money, the only thing I'm concerned about, because we've gone over a lot of schedules in the past and many subcommittees on various other issues of fines, and if you're saying that a $25 fine well, first off, it's our anticipation that no one's going to pay any fine, because they're going to choose to spend $25 or $150 on paint to cover up the graffiti, or product to remove the graffiti of some sort. So hopefully that's where this is, no fine. But I guess it's been said in the past that, you know, sort of like with the trash or something, well, you give them a $25 fine, they ignore it, because it's only $25. And yes, you tack on another, but what was the better choice? Was the choice to waste, or if the little old lady has, you know, $25 is going to be better than buying that can of and a roller to paint over? You know, I'm not so sure. I'm wondering, I want to get the bylaw passed, and I think there needs to be something attached to it. I am concerned that at 25 or 50, people will just roll over and say, I'm not going to pay it. You know, I won't even pay it anyway, you know, which tends to happen to a lot of fines. But, so I think if the purpose is that we believe by doing this, they're going to fix the problem, then it doesn't really matter what we charge. It just sounds really bad when you charge a lot of money. You know, the concept is this is going to be a tool and a standard that we set for the community, and hopefully they're going to comply and not have to spend $150. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Buxton.
Parliamentary inquiry. Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chairman. With the aforementioned amendment and now a continued possible another amendment, is this not the first reading of the graffiti bylaw as amended? I don't mean to drag this council down. I just think that in order to do things properly, you need 3 clear readings to pass. Thank you. I'd like a response to my parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Buxton, I believe because this is, we are allowed with the 3 readings, I don't agree with it all, but we are allowed to make, and that's the purpose of the 3 readings, to make the changes before the final reading. And when the final reading is, and we can make that change, and then we adopt it, we're all set. We can do that. We had that discussion. I don't agree with it because I understand what you're saying, but if we keep on going, this could keep on going forever. because everyone else has, I mean, no disrespect, but Councilor Carrasco brought this up at the last meeting for 150. We voted 150 in. He has a different view, and I respect what he's trying to do, and I understand it, but now he's bringing a different proposal. So now, okay, now if we started all over again in 3 readings, someone else could bring something back up. It just never ends. It never ends. I mean, we read this 3 times now, and that's one of the problems. It just keeps on. You've seen it play out. One council, we had 5 members here. I had the quorum, and then all of a sudden it came back. Oh, the other people want to chime in. It's quite frankly, it just gets old and exhausting on it. So we are doing the right thing. We are. Don't have to agree with it, but we're doing the right thing.
With all due respect, sir, Councilor Carrasco's amendment at the last meeting was not even reflected in the document being read for this reading. I believe Councilor Manna.
Just, well,
He-
there was one typo on the last page, but it
Yes.
was on it was
In
indicated
section E,
here.
and I made mention of
If
that.
it's,
She
if
missed
it's the
one.
chair's decision that the 3 readings are, as you stated, within your purview, I'll stick with that until I find other
Councilman.
parliamentary rules.
Thank
Thank you.
You don't have to read it, just you can tell them what pages to find it.
On Robert's Rules of Order, page 592, it talks about the isolated changes for the bylaws. And it states that it can be treated as a motion to amend something previously adopted, subject to particular rules indicated immediately above. And then there's more on page 594 in sections 10, 15, 20, and 25 of Robert's Rules of Order.
Thank you, Council. Mr. Murray?
Yes. I just became aware of this at the last meeting, and I've given it some thought that I haven't really heard addressed here. If I am very conscious about personal property rights, and this seems to be somewhat of an attack on them, and I just wonder what a constitutional lawyer would do with this proposal. In the definition of graffiti, it also speaks about authorization. And, okay, is this a good bylaw, or how is this easily beat? One could easily say, as a homeowner, I authorized it. Then where do we go? Whose decision are you going to go against personal private property, and what judgment, and what court, and what legal expense, and what rabbit hole are we going to go down for that? You know, we've heard some elderly talk about sidewalk bylaws and their struggles to clean them, and we're going to fine them. And we can't help them out because our workers can't go on private property. And when we had the tornado situation, we heard again that our town workers can't go on private property. So here we have a bylaw, and what is it saying? Town employees are going to go on private property. You know, it's inconsistent, and it's, you know, it's certainly food for thought. And even if you're going to allow that, I would have to question if our town employees have workers' comp insurance that covers them if they get hurt on private property. If they get hurt on town property, yeah, they're most likely covered. Is there a separate rider if they go on private property? Is that going to cost us money if we pass this bylaw as it's written? Okay, say you let it go through and you clean a person's property and you do damage to the property. Who's responsible for that? The town? The person's homeowner is going to say, well, this town put people on their property. The side of the house that got cleaned potentially doesn't look like the rest of the house. Insurance companies will say, you have to make that person whole. Not only do you have to fix, paint, side, whatever the house repairs on the side that had the graffiti to make them whole. Now you have to make every other side of the house match. Some insurance claims have been passed that way, so it has happened. But you know, this is a question, and if you haven't thought about it, it's up for discussion. I support the lower fines. In the last meeting, you heard about the tagging that happens repetitively over and over again. You know, they're marking their territory. So are we going to hit someone with 150, 150, and 150? If they could afford to clean off the graffiti that gets repetitively done, if they can't afford it, how are they going to afford to pay a fine? In this town, we have a lot of bank-owned properties, and we have utility companies. Are we holding them to the fire? Are we getting money from them? If we're going to have a bylaw that says everyone has graffiti, if you go through this process and you don't follow it, we're going to fine them, it only works. It's only a good bylaw if everyone is held accountable and everyone pays it. If that's not the case, and I don't think it's a very good bylaw. And in other towns, I looked up and I saw the town of Plymouth. Now, coincidentally, maybe it's because they have a town meeting, I don't know, but they have a program called Pride Townwide. And what they do is there's a waiver, and if the homeowner signs the waiver for allowing a town employee to go on private property, the town pays for the removal. So I don't really want to fund that either, but I'm just telling you there are many other examples out there, and these are some thoughts, and some of them are some serious thoughts, and I don't know if I haven't heard them before, so I wanted to raise them and look forward to your feedback.
Councilman, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. To Mr. Murray's point in regards to town personnel going on private property, Mr. Pelletier from the Board of Health did bring that up, and he said it wouldn't be town employees going on to private property. He would outsource and have a cleaning company and to remove the graffiti. So it wouldn't be town employees.
Councilor Nicola.
Thank you. This has been a concern of mine in reading this. I've got to be honest with you. I don't think we have any business getting on people's property. I don't know what other towns do, and I frankly don't care. But I don't see why we would have to get on somebody's property and remove the graffiti. I don't feel that that's a necessity. It's the responsibility. I mean, if it's going to be the responsibility of the owner, it's the responsibility of the owner. I don't want to sound like I'm preaching here, but I'm going to say something that I've had it up to here with this sort of thing. We give it away. We give it away in this town. And that's why the town looks blighted in many cases, because we have no standards. None. Poor this one, poor that one, poor you, poor me. So we just let it go. It's just easier to let it go, and it shows. And then on one side, we're being charged by some of the citizens with we don't do enough to do anything for this community. And then when you try to do something as simple as saying, show some responsibility for your own property, we're villains. I don't quite understand the mindset, because it's all over the map. It's like, I want you to give me, and I don't want to have to do anything. I want lower taxes, and yet I want the town to look like this, and I want all the services, but I don't want to pay for them. And it's your responsibility to make sure that all works. And when you don't, you're bad. And frankly, I expect that out of a 4-year-old, not a person who comes to the podium or an adult. And I've been listening to that for a very long time, and frankly, I think it's pretty ridiculous. Nobody takes any responsibility for anything. If you have property that's been vandalized, that's just like, oh, a tree fell through my roof. I'm a victim. So I'm going to leave it like that because I'm the victim. Too bad. Blow your nose, wipe your eyes, and get out there and clean your mess. It's your property, clean it up. I mean, why is that such a difficult concept? And when you don't, it makes everybody's property around you look lousy that are doing what they're supposed to do. And you know why I know that? Because I do get the phone calls on those issues. Why is so-and-so across the street allowed to let his grass grow to the second level of his house? Why is the trash out in front of his... Why do I see on Worcester Street, some guy left his Casella tote out there for 3 weeks? Where's the enforcement, for crying out loud? 3 weeks. It was sitting in the middle of the road practically. I mean, why do we waste our time with this stuff? Why? Why have a bylaw review committee or a charter review committee? Why spend hour after hour doing this? For what reason? So we can sit here and blow our nose and say, poor you, you're a victim? When does anybody take any responsibility? Drive down any street in this town and it's blighted. So, frankly, I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be like this anymore, but I'm sitting here and it's like the ridiculousness of it. Too bad if somebody spray painted the side of your building. That's the way it is. Wake up. You're a grown-up. Get out there and clean your property. And if you don't, you should be responsible in some form or another. That's, to me, it's the same thing. It's just like if nature takes your building. Yeah, you feel sorry for that person. They're a victim, but eventually you got to get going and do something else and take care of it. And no, you're never going to find the people that vandalize. You never do. You never do. You can't even find the people that, litter in this town. And believe me, they exist. Thank you.
Yep. Council Moriarty.
Just a request, I think, more so is I think Mr. Murray, and I have comments on that, on Mr. Murray's thoughts and suggestions, but I think just as a point of order of sorts, we do have the motion and a second on the floor for a separate amendment, and I figure we should just kind of rectify that before going into the personal property end of it.
I agree, but I'm just letting everyone speak.
Right, I'm just saying that instead of any additional comments on that, if we could. That's all.
Absolutely. Anyone have anything else to offer on what is amended right now? I know we have a motion and we have a second on the amendment. Any discussion? We'll call on the amendment, please.
Counselor Manna?
No.
Counselor Marcucci?
No.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
No.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Carrasco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
No.
Counselor Langevin?
No.
5 no, 3 yes.
Amendment does not pass. Now, back to discussion again. Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Murray did bring up about an attorney looking at this, and I believe our town attorney, Mr. Capera, did look at this amendment, and he did approve it to go to subcommittee. And that's all. Thank you.
Councilor Clements.
Thank you. In regard to going on private property, it's my understanding that there have been numerous times when a property has been full of trash. I mean, like to the point of almost another little landfill. And we have the right, and the town has done that. They have sent, like, especially properties with out-of-town landlords, that type of thing. Actually, it happened right on Main Street. There was one property with a couch, everything, just horrible. And it's my understanding it was DPW who went over and cleaned up, but the property owner then gets a lien on his property for the costs incurred on that. So I'm not sure if it's allowed because at that point you're doing it as a town situation versus during the tornado, they wanted us to work on private property that was not a town deemed need, it was a private owner deemed need. I'm not really sure. I'm just questioning that particular part of it. But I do know that we have gone onto property or had others come onto property to take trash and clean up and also even to cut, when you talk about the weeds growing to the second floor, there are times if it becomes a fire hazard, it is my understanding from the previous town manager that we have cut things and again put the lien onto the property because of non-kept property and nuisance hazard, whatever you want to call it. So I'm not sure where that falls in line with this, or if it does. Perhaps you could shed light on that, somebody. No? The town manager, anybody? No? Okay. Yeah, I just know it's happened.
Any other discussion? Council Moriarty.
Thank you. I think Mr. Murray has brought up a good number of points in terms of the private property issue, and that's a very valid concern. I remember back when the tornado had happened, Mr. Butler and others from the Brookside, Worcester Street, Charlton Street neighborhood in particular, coming forward and kind of talking about getting trees, because we had, actually it was Mr. Murray was involved in that Operation Tree Party, and the town helped out, and I remember there were several residents that came up kind of saying, we need help getting all of this tornado debris off our property, and they were more or less told, that's great, we'll help you out so long as you could drag it out to the corner, out to the street. And our previous town manager and several of the councilors here swore up and down that it really was not the town's place. The town should not be on private property. It wasn't appropriate. There's so much liability, which there is, just a great number of concerns. And I agree with that. And I think that carries over to here. I think, Mr. Murray's already kind of explained a lot of the potential scenarios, and, I don't need to beat a dead horse by going over those again, but I think that's a valid point. There is a great deal of liability one way or another, not only just on the homeowner, if something is to happen that the homeowner in this ridiculously litigious world we live in is on the hook for, but also the town and or its vendor that would be contracted or subcontracted out. So as such, what I'd like to do then, with all that in mind is, and just going through it quickly, is to make a motion just to amend by striking in section 7-503.3, sections B and D, which have no fiscal components to them. It's just solely that if you don't do so, that the town can enter your property and do this, as well as the last sentence of section E, which basically says the same thing. It doesn't eradicate the fine, just eradicates the portion that the town can jump onto your property and remove. So the motion, I guess, is just to remove the part where the town is allowed to come onto your property, and that would be removing in 7503.3 sections B and D, which again have no fiscal impact. That language just specifically states that the town's allowed to get on your property. And then on section E, or subsection E rather, just that last sentence, again, which just says the town's allowed on your property, not to remove the fine as already voted and discussed. So I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Councilman.
Again, I'm going to bring up that our town attorney looked at this, and he gave the okay on this. I'm assuming he just didn't look at it like this and say, yeah, it's okay. I'm assuming we pay for our town attorney to read what we give him. So if the town attorney did not have any issues with B, D, or E in section 7-503.3, if he did have any concerns, he would have let us know. And he didn't have any concerns with that section, so he didn't let us know. So I'm assuming this is good to go in the form it's in. I'm not an attorney, though, but our attorney did look at this. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the amended motion? Seeing none, roll call on the amendment, please.
Councilor Marcucci? Yes. Councilor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal? Counselor Carrasco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
No.
6 yes, 2 no.
The amendment does not pass. Excuse me, you're right, it does pass. Sorry, it's late. So, any other discussion now on this proposed graffiti bylaw?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I ask for the first reading as amended?
Yep. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal? No. Is that in? No. Counselor Carrasco?
No.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
6 yes, 2 no.
Motion passes. Moving on to agenda item number 11, Councilors Forum. I will start with Councilor Clements.
Just a couple of things. Sorry, I know it's late, but sometimes people watch things, watch this rerun, and it's great. I just want to remind, you mentioned, the town manager did mention the concert. I'm going to show the little flyer here. I was asked also to mention it. It is the United States Air Force Heritage of America Band. They're playing all over New England, and one of their stops is here in Southbridge. So we're very, very fortunate to have them. And while this is a free concert, as the manager stated, you must have a ticket to get in. The tickets are free, and you can get them at the Jacob Edwards Library. The date of the concert, again, 7 p.m. Saturday, April 26th. I hear only good things about this group, and certainly encourage you to fill that auditorium and show the Air Force Band how welcome they are here in Southbridge. Okay, moving on. Dog litter was mentioned, but again, people ask me. I want to remind people, when you take your dog out, just because you might live on a sort of semi-rural road, maybe you're not downtown on Main Street or the side streets with sidewalks where it's evident, there are other neighbors. Your neighbors are walking their dogs with their bags, and they're not liking their dog sniffing your dog's poop all over the sides of the road either. It may seem like it's rural, but unless you've put that poop into the woods, it is there for all to step in and see. So again, the snow is melted, there's a lot of dog litter going on, and if you're going to have the responsibility of an animal, please pick up after your dog. And for those of you who don't pick up, if somebody sees you, or your neighbors know about you, and you people who complain to me all the time, can we do something about it? Then do what the police chief said. Report them. Let the police know there's a constant violation going on, and they'll get a fine. It's unfortunate, but, if they can't just pick up their dog poop and be responsible, then they should get a ticket. And I'd like to congratulate Ron Plouffe on his certification for our airport manager. Looking forward to brighter times up there at the airport, and hopefully making a little money for the community, too. That would be a wonderful thing. And last but not least, if you are really concerned about the situation in terms of businesses coming into our community, not just Cumberland Farms, but any of them, go to planning board meetings. Go, listen, talk. They're public hearings. You need to do your work. You need to advocate for yourself, because we don't always know what each and every person wants. Certainly go to the planning board meeting so you can get a better understanding of what's happening in your community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Manna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Reed. I know I asked you this a couple weeks ago. I probably know what the answer is going to be, but I'm going to ask you again anyways, because I feel it needs to be put out there. In regards to the $25,000 that was approved for the missing gas bill from the school, and the $16,000 that was appropriated last year through the town council that they came back for again this year. Do we have any answers on that?
Let me check with the accountant.
Okay, thank you very much, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vandal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The buildings in town, we've got too many buildings condemned buildings. They've been on the books for too long. You've got one on Worcester Street that's a real eyesore. You've got one down on River Street across from the mill, across from Russell Harrington, 6-family. You've got the old Vic Spa on Worcester Street. You know, there's a lot of them I don't even know, but I'll tell you that throughout the town, there's too many. The one on Worcester Street's been there for years like that. We gotta stop putting our foot down and doing something with these buildings. Either they're gonna get grants and fix them up or tear them down, because that's the real eyesore. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nicole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to try to move this along quickly because it's very late. I have to take a moment and thank all of the people that worked very hard on all of the bylaws. First of all, I want to thank the Bylaw Review Committee, that being Kevin Buxton, Lenny Laporte, Pamela Scavera, Susan Starkey, and David Williams. They were the original Bylaw Review Committee. I think it's been 2 years, but we finally came to the end on that. I also want to thank the intern that was working with Mr. Clark, kid from Clark University, his master's program. His name is Spencer Curry. He was the person who worked the hardest on the sign bylaw. The Historical Commission also weighed in on that, and Councilor Manna for the graffiti bylaw. As you can see, this is not a small project. I was the chair of the town council when I appointed the Bylaw Review Committee, and that was some time ago. And it's taken approximately 2 years to come to the end of all of this. And I'm happy to say that it is the end of all of this. Hopefully, what work has been done on these bylaws will be enforced, and it will help to make things a lot more smooth and easier to understand what you can do and what you can't do. I guess I always considered it common sense, but after 9 years of this, I obviously have rethought what common sense actually is. Also, I wanted to just quickly say that I took a tour also of the high school, middle school, last week in the middle of the day. And while I will reserve comments about the administration and the budget and the school committee, because I have plenty of opinion about that, I will say that the teachers and the programs are wonderful, and frankly, I don't know why anybody would take their kid and send them to another school district when you can have engineering classes up at the high school taught by actual engineers, and all kinds of graphic arts, all kinds of programs that I certainly didn't see when I was in high school, and I know nobody that went to Southbridge High back then or even in the past few years had. The programs are very impressive. The school itself is magnificent. I was very interested in talking to the teachers who seemed genuinely engaged, and I was very impressed. So I just wanted to get that out there. People who have opted for school choice obviously haven't done their homework. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Moriarty.
Thank you. The first one I'm going to bring up, I guess, I wasn't even thinking or planning to, but similar to some of the comments from Councilor Nicola right there, is for myself, as a former high school student, obviously, as we all were, but through pre-practicum work, student teaching, and just regular teaching, I've been inside of a great number of different school buildings to observe or conduct classes. And one thing I can say, whether it was Shepherd Hill, Auburn, Fitchburg High School, Southbridge High School, Neshoba Regional, and others, all with very different demographics and dynamics. For the most part, the kids, whether it's at Neshoba or Auburn or Southbridge and Fitchburg High, the kids, for the most part, are really the same kids. And for the most part, to an extent, the teachers are the same teachers. And I think the biggest difference is that I've seen, that I've observed and witnessed is, one is the parental involvement at home and the support. And that's something that I may take some heat for, but that's something that we lack here. We need more of that. We need more positive support, more positive influence, and it's not just in school. I've seen it. I know Esteban has seen it, just in coaching Little League and such, where these things are just daycare for a lot of people. They drop their kids off. The number of kids I've seen coaching 10, 11, 12-year-old kids at Henry Street that walk there. I've had seasons where I had one parent show up for a game kind of thing on a regular basis, that sort of thing. So we need more of that, and it's just my own personal belief that in terms of academic success, whether it's at Southbridge High School or Neshoba, which is very elite, kids arguing over who's going to Columbia and who's going to Harvard. It's what you make of it. It's what the students make of it. It's what the parents make of it. It's what the faculty makes of it. But I'm convinced that you can take a student and put them at any school, and so long as they do what they need to do, they will succeed. And you can take a kid and throw them at the best school in the world, and if he or she doesn't want to do it, they're not going to do it. So just kind of building off that. Otherwise, I'll kind of trim some of the fat real quick of the other stuff. I'll cut some of it out, actually, to save us some time. But just, Mr. Buxton has already left, but I just wanted to kind of point out, because he had asked it during Citizens Forum, and I'm certainly not looking for a debate at the time, but in terms of when citizens kind of should come forward, right now, in my mind, is the time to come forward going through the subcommittee meetings and such, because this is where things take place. This is when the decisions are made that, in the version he gave was, kind of the tax rate is the first step or the first season, and we're doing now is the second season, but it's really kind of the opposite. This is the first season that sets that up. When we have people up here and they vote against the tax rate, ultimately it doesn't mean anything because everything's already put in place. So that's the kind of the big thing. By all means, there's come down here any given night at 7 o'clock, and there's a pretty good chance you're going to see a budget meeting in the next couple weeks. One night that you won't, just as a quick advert for it, is the Bicentennial Committee happens to be meeting this upcoming, actually it's next Wednesday, the 16th, at 7 p.m. So that just wanted to kind of say that's open to everyone and anyone to take part. And lastly, just as a plug for them, the Pioneer Athletic Booster Association is hosting an Easter egg hunt this upcoming Saturday, the 12th, at McMahon Field. Gates will open at 12 noon. The hunt starts at 12:15. It's $3 per egg hunter. Bring your own basket. If you can find the golden egg, you win a 4-pack of tickets to a Pawtucket Red Sox game. The Easter Bunny will apparently be there. They'll have DJs, tattoos, I assume temporary tattoos, door prizes, et cetera, et cetera. So just a nice event going on locally for the kids and going towards a good cause in terms of the Pioneer Athletic Booster Association. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Council Carrasco.
Yeah, I just have a few things. I just want to, during Citizen Forum, Mr. Satilli made a comment that he had not heard back from counselors or he didn't get answers. I want to make it very clear that I hold myself accountable to the public. And anybody that has approached me, anybody that has made concerns or questions, I have addressed them with either our chair or our town manager. And publicly, I want to thank Mr. Reed for getting back at a really quick turnaround in regards to concerns that I have brought up. Mr. Santilli, he did mention that a counselor did call him, and I want to say publicly it was me that called him to let him know that his matter was addressed. Did he get the answers from me? No, because I'm not going to answer something that I don't know. I didn't know how the process was going, so I refer it to the proper source. Unfortunately, I just want to make sure that the citizens of Southbridge know that we are approachable, and if you treat us with respect, we're going to give you respect. And at no point in time, I have not addressed a concern that a citizen has brought up to me. So I just want to make that loud and clear that there has been feedback to concerns and questions that have been brought before my table. During earlier today, there was a gentleman that spoke, and I know he's been serving in our town for many years, and publicly, I want to say thank you for anybody that takes the chance and serves on a subcommittee as a citizen member, or even takes a chance and runs and is on the council. I want to say thank you. But I understand that citizens can be disrespectful. But I want to reiterate something that I said when I was running. It is our due diligence to hold our level of respect higher than any citizen. And it was said tonight that his wife was worried in regards to language and his blood pressure. I'm glad his wife was worried about his blood pressure. But at no point in time should any public official bring himself down to a level where the language is no longer respectful. If it gets to a point where the citizen's disrespectful, it is our best interest to hang up the phone and not engage in any more conversation. I hope that we continue to build and bring up our level of respect as citizens and also as public officials. I still believe that our council should hold, or we should come to some term where we can hold each other accountable with public decisions that we decide to make. I'm not in agreement. If we break the law, we shall be held accountable. Also, not only in the law aspect, but as a citizen, as a body, governing body. I know that the people have to do a recall election. And again, I'm not throwing stones at anybody. But if we do something publicly where it puts our citizens in jeopardy and our level of respect is not there, I think we should be held accountable. And I just want to say that loud and clear. I think we work hard, and I know it's hard when the public disagrees with us. I don't agree with everybody, but we still have to maintain a level of respect. That's why we can disagree and agree, but our language we should watch. And I understand the concern about the dog feces or dog poop. If it's on private property, it is the private property owner's responsibility to get rid of it. If it's on public property, we have to get it. The person that's walking the dog has to get rid of it. So just make that aware that if the dog is loose and it happens on your property, it's your responsibility as a homeowner. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Marcucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I only have 10 items that I need to address.
Nobody likes you.
You're kidding. I just have one comment. I'm sorry. I received a call this weekend from a woman on Ridge Road. She just wanted me to publicly thank the gentleman from the DPW department that plowed Ridge Road this winter. She had nothing but praise for them. I guess Ridge Road was always a road that was done at, the 13th hour, and they always had problems getting in and out of their driveway and just to drive on Ridge Road. So she called me and just wanted me to publicly thank the gentleman from DPW for maintaining Ridge Road and doing a great job and giving her a little smile and wave every time they went by. And that's it.
Thank you, Councilor. Moving on to agenda item number 12, discussion of the next meeting date. Councilor Marcucci.
That will be Monday, April 28th, 2014, 7 p.m. in the council chambers.
Thank you, Councilor. Agenda item number 13, vote to enter into executive session according to Mass General Laws, Chapter 39, Section 23B, to discuss collective bargaining or litigation and consider the purchase, exchange, taking a lease or value of real property, and to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Need a roll call on this.
Counselor Nicola?
Yes.
Counselor Vandal?
Yes.
Counselor Carrasco?
Yes.
Counselor Clements?
Yes.
Counselor Langevin?
Yes.
Counselor Manna?
Yes.
Counselor Marcucci?
Yes.
Counselor Moriarty?
Yes.
8 yes.
Thank you.